Baek Yul dreamed of a quiet life without chaos, while Esper Han, blindfolded, clutched the straps with trembling fingers and almost obsessively reached only for Baek Yul. Yul's red locks trembled with panic as the name of the dangerous Han Li-hyun appeared nearby with a frightening power. Behind the soft pink flashes, there was a cold man who controlled Baek Beul and did not let go of Baek Yul. The cold department head among the blue flowers ordered Baek Yul to report every step, turning care into control. Baek Yul looked at the stern man with concern, trying to figure out where the defense ended and the obsession began. The blonde man leaned too close to Baek Yul, turning the quiet conversation into a dangerous game of control. Yul's chin among the purple roses and his soft smile was more frightening than any threat. Baek Yul jerked away from the stranger's touch, while the heavy gaze behind her demanded submission only to him. The three dangerous men looked at Baek Yul with cold jealousy, dividing her between madness and obsession. Baek Yul pressed her hand to her chest with a trembling heart as thoughts of crazy men turned into real fear. Yul's world collapsed in an instant as black cracks tore through the sky, revealing true monsters. A small dragon burst out of a glowing portal right in the middle of the city, causing passers-by to scream in horror. A huge monster destroyed empty streets, while people realized with horror that ordinary weapons would no longer save anyone. The world stood on the brink of extinction until the first awakened, with incredible powers, appeared in the midst of the fire. A guy with flames in his palm and people who control lightning and water began hunting deadly monsters. The crowd on the shore cheered with delight when the awakened were finally able to close the destructive gate. People never found out why the gates appeared, but the world gradually returned to a calm and normal life. On the buses and in the streets, there was increasing talk of the awakened, who were now considered the new heroes of the world. Baek Yul looked out the window wearily, listening to cries of discrimination as society divided people based on their strength. The passengers on the bus were wearily discussing the protests against the awakened people, while Baek Yul looked out the window indifferently. For Baek Yul, other people's arguments about heroes and discrimination had long since become noise that had no effect on her life. Back home, Baek Yul anxiously prepared for the entrance exams, seeing them as a chance to escape poverty. Baek Yul clenched her fists with joy and confidence, convincing herself that everything would definitely change after the exams. Yul's plans by announcing her sudden awakening right before her exams. Baek Yul looked at the letter in confusion while thoughts about the entrance exams turned into a real disaster. Grandma Peck's death, Yul survived alone, working part-time days and nights to pay for her studies and a cheap room. The girl collapsed to the floor, exhausted, realizing that now even trying to get in might turn out to be an unattainable dream. Baek Yul screamed with joy amidst the bright confetti when she unexpectedly hit the jackpot of fate. Baek Yul completed the registration and could barely contain her smile at the unexpected stroke of luck. The girl shone among the golden sparks, already imagining a calm life without the fear of losing state support. The awakened were divided into espers and guides, with the dangerous fighters depending on the support of people like Baek Yul. While the espers fought the monsters, the guides stabilized their powers and prevented the dangerous men from losing control. Baek Yul received her C-Class Guide certificate and quickly realized that her job was to calm the espers nearby. The low rank no longer frightened Baek Yul because the salary, benefits, and free apartment changed her life. Free treatment, housing, and huge payments made Baek Yul look at her new job with almost delight. Sprawled on a soft sofa with tangerines in his hands, Baek Yul happily called the life of a government guide a true paradise. 5 years, Baek Yul worked calmly as a C-Class guide and was confident that her life would always remain safe. Colleagues Miso and Cecile happily rushed to Baek Yul's side, greeting her after another difficult trip. Baek Yul smiled warmly at her friends, feeling truly at ease among them for the first time in a long time. Miso clung tightly to Baek Yul with childish delight as she wearily tried to stay on her feet. Yul's pale face, worrying that another trip had completely exhausted her. At the table, Baek Yul admitted to her colleagues that even a week after the mission, her body still had not recovered. Tiredly finishing a can of coffee, Baek Yul increasingly understood why guides hated dangerous work in the field. Colleagues discussed an emergency deployment where even guides were in short supply, so weak C-classes like Baek Yul were sent into battle. Miso asked curiously about Han Li-hyun, while Baek Yul winced tiredly at the mere mention of his name. The ruined city was drowned in corpses and the smell of blood, and frightened guides crowded around the dangerous Han Li-hyun. Baek Yul gloomily recalled how all the available guides and even the B-class were urgently thrown into stabilizing Li-hyun. The blind, dangerous man with a cold face calmly ignored his permanent guide, continuing to change partners almost every month. Miso whispered that Han Li-hyun chooses guides without regret, while others are afraid to work with him. Baek Yul clutched her coffee can in irritation, not understanding how the dangerous man even survived without a constant guide. Colleagues recalled the scandal with Seo Ah-jin, whom Han Li-hyun refused to partner with almost no explanation. At the table, they started talking again about the arrogant Li-hyun, who was famous for his difficult character even among the S-classes. Rumors of incredible compatibility were circulating among the guides, to the point that they were even planning to invite an S-class from abroad to Korea. The association secretly collected the blood of B-class guides and tested their compatibility with dangerous S-class espers. Baek Yul thoughtfully went through the names, realizing that, among the S-class, only Han Li-hyun and the association leader remained. The association leader calmly controlled his forces without a guide, so everyone's attention returned to Han Li-hyun again. The colleagues were excitedly discussing the cold, handsome Li-hyun, while Baek Yul irritably tried to change the subject. Li-hyun were increasingly brought up, but Baek Yul didn't believe it. Baek Yul gloomily considered the point of even seeking compatibility with a C-class guide if the chance of success was almost impossible. Miso suddenly remembered a popular novel about a dangerous man and a female guide who became dependent on each other. On the vibrant cover, a man hungrily held a girl close while the story promised love through dangerous compatibility. Baek Yul explained to her friends with a smile that even 20% compatibility is already considered rare luck. Her colleagues teased Baek Yul and advised her to find a dangerous man who would melt her cold heart. Baek Yul theatrically asked for advice on feelings, while Miso looked on in confusion at her latest drama. Miso hugged Baek Yul tightly and promised to stay by her side forever, causing everyone at the table to burst into laughter. The cheerful conversation was abruptly interrupted when Baek Yul was unexpectedly called to an urgent meeting without the other guides. Baek Yul threw the empty can into the trash can and calmly left, confident that the conversation was again about the paperwork after leaving. For the last 5 years, Baek Yul lived a quiet and stable life, considering such a calm life her main dream. In the huge hall, the staff were preparing to calculate the compatibility percentage between the guides and the dangerous S-class espers. Han Li-hyun appeared among the bright digital panels with the icy calm of a man feared by all of Korea. Next to him stood the second S-class with a cold gaze, and the atmosphere around the two monsters became heavier with each passing second. In the huge hall next to Baek Yul stood influential people and dangerous espers on whom the fate of the country depended. The association staff nervously calculated the result, and Baek Yul froze when she saw the shocking 89%. The scientist recalculated the data in a panic over and over again, not believing that the compatibility with Han Li-hyun had grown to almost 90. Yul's world collapsed in a second as screens crackled around her, and her thoughts of a peaceful life crumbled before her eyes. Baek Yul was confused when she recalled the old tests for determining class, and did not understand where the new numbers came from. Hearing about 87%, Baek Yul panicked and decided that the association staff had simply mixed up the results. The scientist nervously waved his tablet and enthusiastically shouted about the incredible compatibility, while everyone around him was speechless. Han Li-hyun stood with icy calm as the staff officially announced his compatibility with Baek Yul. A heavy silence fell over the room, and Baek Yul looked at Li-hyun as if the world had completely gone mad. Baek Yul burst into tears when she realized that the rumors about her compatibility with the dangerous esper were true. The leader calmly admitted that she had secretly examined the blood of the C-class guides along with Han Li-hyun's data. While the scientist was happily talking about an urgent consultation with the S-class, Baek Yul covered her face with her hand in pure horror. Guide Center Director Ju-won personally gathered the association's elite to meet with the confused Baek Yul after the test. The chief of the central headquarters calmly explained that compatibility above 20% was considered impossible even for the S-class. While the serious espers were discussing the results, Baek Yul's mind was distracted by the cold boss's overly handsome face. So Yeon frowned and guessed that the equipment might be broken because those numbers sounded abnormal. Hwang Theon thoughtfully suggested that Baek Yul was hiding his true rank, since a regular C-class wouldn't produce such a result. Baek Yul calmly recalled the recent re-examination, where her abilities were again confirmed as ordinary C-class. The scientist almost screamed as he continued to repeat the number 89, while the others lost their composure. Baek Yul cursed quietly and tried to look away from Han Li-hyun, who continued to silently watch only her. Yoo-hwan congratulated Han Li-hyun with a smile, while the staff around him were already calling Baek Yul his future partner. Hoang Theon noted mockingly that the dangerous man had almost broken down due to unstable energy just recently. The chief of staff coldly stated that such compatibility would be a holiday not only for Li Hyun, but for the entire association. Hearing his name, Baek-yeol jumped up from her seat, feeling the attention of the dangerous men squeezing her throat. Han Li Hyun was instantly at her side and caught Baek-yeol before she could collapse in the middle of the hall. The blind man held Baek-yeol tightly among the shimmering flowers and light, not allowing her to escape from his embrace. Li Hyun lost his cold composure for the first time and anxiously checked to see if Baek-yeol had come to her senses. Baek-yeol breathed heavily in Han Li Hyun's arms as her thoughts of a peaceful life crumbled before her eyes. Pressed against the dangerous man, Baek-yeol realized with horror that her quiet life had ended in a real nightmare. Li Hyun's dark room, afraid to even step inside towards the dangerous S-Class, the doctor nervously recalled how the doors of the ward would activate themselves every time someone tried to enter Li Hyun's room. In front of the huge Esper, the doctor instantly lost his confidence and could barely squeeze out a polite greeting in a trembling voice. Li Hyun's cold aura was so oppressive that the doctor laughed nervously, trying not to show his true fear. The doctor quickly explained that Baek-yeol was simply sleeping after being overtired, and her condition did not appear to be dangerous. Li Hyun gloomily ordered the doctor to think about his answer again, causing him to break out in a cold sweat from panic. Yeol's real diagnosis when important officials suddenly entered the room. Chief Do-gon and Director Ju-hwan appeared with serious faces, clearly preparing for a difficult conversation about Baek-yeol. The terrified doctor immediately fled the room, leaving the dangerous men to discuss Baek-yeol's condition alone. Yu-won wearily asked Li Hyun to stop intimidating the doctors who were already afraid to enter his room. The chief of staff immediately noticed that Li Hyun had removed his communication watch again, completely cutting himself off from the association. Han Li Hyun stood silently by Baek-yeol's bedside with a cold face, not even trying to justify himself to the management. Yu-hwan irritably reminded Li Hyun that the new gate could only be sensed in advance through special reconnaissance. Do-gon quickly realized that Li Hyun knew in advance about the opening of the dangerous second-level gate and still stayed here. Han Li Hyun calmly admitted that he was planning to go on a mission, while the others tried to understand his strange behavior. Yu-hwan burst into tears, not understanding why the strongest S-Class was doing nothing when others could handle the gate. The chief of staff sat gloomily in his chair and reminded them that they had been unable to seal the huge gates in the west for a week. Do-gon tiredly ran his hand through his hair and asked Li Hyun point-blank if he was going to go on the mission at all. The chief's cold gaze suddenly grew heavier when he realized that Li Hyun might refuse to leave Baek-yeol. Han Li Hyun stood silently by Baek-yeol's bed, like a chained monster who couldn't leave his guide. Li Hyun coldly ordered everyone to be informed that Baek-yeol was simply sleeping after a nervous breakdown and would soon wake up. Ju-won breathed a sigh of relief next to Li Hyun but immediately asked him to be more careful around the chief of staff. Han Li Hyun spoke tensely about his guide, and even that short sentence caused the room to suddenly fall silent. Li Hyun asked again about his guide with icy calm, as if he already considered Baek-yeol to belong only to him. The chief of staff slowly hinted that after awakening, Baek-yeol might refuse to associate his life with a dangerous Esper. The words about a possible refusal immediately made Li Hyun tense up, while a heavy silence filled the room. Do-gon patted Li Hyun on the shoulder and reminded him that the association had high hopes for their compatibility. The chief's cold gaze darkened as he ordered Li Hyun to stop acting like a jealous child. Under the bandage, Han Li Hyun's face twisted in irritation as the dangerous Esper silently held back his outburst of emotion. Ju-won quietly coaxed Li Hyun to go on a mission while the dangerous man kept his eyes on Baek-yeol's bed. Before leaving, Han Li Hyun approached the sleeping Baek-yeol and promised to return quickly just for her sake. Baek-yeol lay motionless under the cold light of the room, while a heavy silence remained around after the Esper left. Yeol's eyes flew open as if even in her sleep, she sensed the absence of the dangerous man. Baek-yeol woke up abruptly in the hospital room, gasping for air after a heavy sleep next to the dangerous Han Li Hyun. Li Hyun's promise to return to her came back to Baek-yeol's mind, and it only made her feel more irritated. Baek-yeol thought gloomily that the association was already considering her as Han Li Hyun's personal guide, without even asking for permission. The girl jumped up on the bed and furiously declared that she would never agree to become a partner of a dangerous S-Class. A loud knock on the door made Baek-yeol jump in fear as someone rushed down the hallway straight towards the ward. Miso rushed inside with a panicked scream, as if she had aged from worrying about Baek-yeol during this week. Miso clings to Baekhyul in tears and furiously complains that Han Lee-hyun has forbidden her from visiting her friend. Baekhyul was confused and tried to understand why Lee-hyun suddenly started guarding her as if she belonged only to him. After hearing about a whole week of unconsciousness, Baekhyul suddenly turned pale and couldn't believe the time she had lost. Miso nervously recounted rumors about Lee-hyun's mysterious guide from the intensive care unit, while Baekhyul silently clutched her head. The friends were simultaneously outraged by Han Lee-hyun's behavior, not understanding why the dangerous Esper was so fixated on Baekhyul. Miso's face darkened sharply as she admitted that the entire association now believed that Baekhyul was Lee-hyun's lover. Miso furiously covered Baekhyul's mouth with her hand, forbidding her to even joke about an affair with the dangerous Han Lee-hyun. Baekhyul nervously hugged her friend and dreamed of returning to a calm life without the crazy attention around Lee-hyun. A whole crowd of doctors and association employees suddenly entered the room, immediately surrounding the confused Baekhyul. Dr. Ha Yoon, with a beaming smile, announced that Baekhyul's condition had stabilized and that she would undergo a new examination. Among the doctors, Baekhyul noticed Director Ju-hwan and immediately realized that the conversation would again be very bad. Yu-hwan looked frighteningly persistent with a soft smile, while the staff around him waited only for a response from Baekhyul. For the third time, Baekhyul coldly refused to become Han Lee-hyun's guide, not wanting to lose her freedom. Ju-hwan calmly persuaded Baekhyul to think again, reminding her of the luxurious life next to the S-class. Yu-hwan continued to sweetly describe the benefits of being the personal guide of the strongest S-class, promising money, fame, and protection. Baekhyul gloomily imagined the endless, dangerous rides next to Lee-hyun, and mentally fought off these proposals with a shield. Finally, Baekhyul honestly admitted that she has serious problems supporting Espers during battle. Ju-hwan reminded with an awkward smile that everyone had long known about her avoidance of close physical contact with people. After hearing about the most effective way of support through physical contact and sexual intercourse, Baekhyul nearly exploded from shock and rage. Despite the director's embarrassment, Baekhyul abruptly stated that she would never voluntarily agree to stay with Lee-hyun. Baekhyul explained that after the cleansing, she began to experience strong rebounds and constant fatigue. Yu-hwan tried to calm her down with promises of a long vacation, safety, and life next to the practically invincible Han Lee-hyun. In the midst of the discussion, Baekhyul remembered again why everyone was so afraid of Han Lee-hyun. On the battlefield, he literally looked less like a person and more like a natural disaster. Lee-hyun stood alone in the midst of a swarm of monsters and activated a massive vortex portal that sucked in monsters from all sides. With one sharp clap of his palms, he instantly tore apart and destroyed dozens of monsters at once, flooding the space with blood and body parts. The onlooking awakened ones were in complete shock, recognizing that Lee-hyun's strength had long since gone beyond the normal S-class. For Baekhyul, the most frightening thing was not even the number of monsters, but Lee-hyun himself. His overwhelming aura frightened her more than the monsters. Suddenly, a huge monster tried to attack Lee-hyun point blank, but he didn't even flinch and calmly removed the blindfold. Baekhyul realized that he always fought alone, not out of arrogance, but because it was mortally dangerous for other people to be around him. Behind the bloody field, Han Lee-hyun held the barrier alone, while the other hunters hid in the safe area. The fighters nervously discussed how, without the girl by their side, the dangerous S-class would have long since lost control of its power. Yu-hwan gently explained to Baekhyul, "Her touch extinguishes the darkness inside men, saving their minds." The director beamed with delight, calling her a rare girl who could keep monsters in human form. Baekhyul's tension deepened when she heard that Han Lee-hyun had rejected almost every tour guide for years. Ju-hwan admitted that even with 20% compatibility, Lee-hyun could barely stand other people's support. In the dark arena, young Lee-hyun trembled in pain after the contact that nearly drove him mad. The pills and suppressants only delayed the disaster while the dangerous man slowly destroyed himself from the inside. The director's final words hit Baekhyul the hardest. The country could lose Han Lee-hyun. Baekhyul suddenly jumped up from her hospital bed and demanded that they stop throwing Lee-hyun into the meat grinder of the cleansing. Amidst the shining streams of power, the two dangerous S-classes kept Korea in fear and protected the country from chaos. Yu-hwan admitted with difficulty a third S-class had appeared, but Lee and Han had almost stopped responding to the suppressors. The tired director looked down as he described how the strongest Esper was slowly losing control of himself. The words about euthanasia for the relapsed Espers hit Baekhyul so hard that she started screaming. Baekhyul fiercely defended Lee-hyun while the others calmly discussed his death as a work plan. Zhu Fan tiredly ran his hand through his hair, gathering his strength before asking the girl a difficult question. The director remembered little Li Yan, who grew up for years surrounded by fear, pain, and a dangerous force within. At the end, So Juhwan bowed deeply to Baek Ye-yul and asked for the first time not as a boss, but as a person, to save Han Li-hyun. A new battle flashed across the screens. Han Li-hyun alone held off a monstrous serpent amidst the ruins of the city. Frightened fighters whispered that another breakdown of the dangerous S-class could wipe an entire region off the map. In the command center, operators watched Li-hyun nervously, but orders from above forbade anyone to approach. Cold Dugon silently reported that the association's leadership was already preparing some dangerous plan for Li-hyun. There were almost no support guides left near Li-hyun. One of the hunters muttered darkly that it was as if the association was deliberately pushing Li-hyun to lose control. Even the calmest fighters exchanged worried glances, realizing that if the monster inside Li-hyun were to break free, everyone would die. Seo Juhwan paled over the shaking screen as the alarm screamed about the dangerous Li-hyun losing control. Baek Yul clutched the edge of her hospital gown, her heart sinking after hearing the words about the red zone. Panic filled the room. No one understood why Li-hyun, who was so dependent on her, had broken down right now. Seo Juhwan sank heavily in front of Yo-yul, admitting that it was almost impossible to stop the crazy S-class. Even the strongest Esper in Korea would turn into a monster if there wasn't a girl nearby to restrain him. Baek Yul nervously suggested sending tranquilizers, but the director only shook his head wearily. After hearing the words of support, Yul's eyes flashed with worry, and Li-hyun's name couldn't leave her head. Seo Juhwan trembled with fear, repeating that without her, the dangerous man could die today. Baek Yul slowly bit her lip, torn between her fear of Li-hyun and her desire to save him. The director suddenly perked up and almost beamed at the thought that only Yo-yul was capable of bringing Li-hyun back. Baek Yul paced the room nervously, her anxiety whispering that a trap was waiting for her next to Li-hyun. Seo Juhwan quickly brought a silent teleporter, ready to deliver Ye-yul to the red zone in seconds. After the words about 3 seconds, Baek Yul froze in confusion, and the men were already preparing for takeoff. The teleporter sternly warned Yul to stay above the ground as the air around her trembled with energy. A moment later, the dangerous man abruptly picked Yul up in his arms, leaving her no time to protest. Seo Juhwan waved cheerfully after him, and Baek Yul flushed with anger at someone else's self-confidence. The teleportation abruptly threw Baek Yul into a destroyed area, where the air trembled with Li-hyun's dangerous energy. The girl clutched her head after the jump, while sirens blared around her, and buildings in the 5th district collapsed. Baek Yul sat up abruptly in the smoke, ignoring the screams of the teleporter and her own growing fear. Amidst the empty streets, Yul chuckled nervously, realizing that she was walking alone towards a crazy, dangerous man. Baek Yul slowly looked around the ruined city, where every step only increased the anxiety inside her. Li-hyun's familiar energy flared, and Yo-yul rushed forward straight through the debris of the road. Han Li-hyun stood alone amidst the raging energy as rocks and debris from the gate flew around him. At headquarters, people watched the screens nervously, realizing that the dangerous man was fighting alone again. The huge monitors shook with static as the staff tried to spot Li-hyun amid the dust and chaos. One journalist was already beaming at the thought of a big report, while the others looked around anxiously. The reporter's colleagues sharply reprimanded him, reminding him that the crazy Li-hyun could still lose control. After Chief Dogon's order, a heavy silence fell over the room, and the cameras continued to shake. Baek Yul stood frozen at the shining barrier as the people at headquarters watched her approach Li-hyun with concern. Amidst the floating rocks, Yul stepped forward tensely, ignoring the dangerous energy of the madman. Han Li-hyun slowly turned his head towards the familiar voice, while the destructive force continued to roar around him. Baek Yul introduced herself with a trembling voice, trying to calm the dangerous man with her support. The girl took a deep breath and moved decisively closer to Li-hyun, while the air around her crackled with energy. Baek Yul walked slowly through the raging energy until the road to the dangerous Li-hyun suddenly cleared. Han Li-hyun stood motionless among the shining debris, his unstable power gradually subsiding next to Yul. Baek Yul took a deep breath and forced herself to forget her fear, remembering the terrifying words about euthanasia. The girl looked up at Li-hyun and resolutely began to support him, while the air trembled with tension. In the golden glow, Li-hyun suddenly grabbed Ye-yul's hand, and the energy around him flared up even more. From just one touch, Baek Yul trembled, feeling the man's dangerous power pass through her body. Baek Yul trembled from the flow of energy and carefully asked Lee Hyun not to lose control prematurely. Lee Hyun slowly lowered his head towards Yeol as the golden glow around him grew hotter. Lee Hyun suddenly hugged Baek Yeol close to him, and her heart started racing with panic. Baek Yul tried to escape the dangerous man's tight embrace in the pink light, looking confused. The girl froze from a quiet sob when Lee Hyun suddenly began to tremble right next to her shoulder. Lee Hyun muffled his complaints of pain, clinging to Yeol so tightly as if he was afraid of being left alone. Baek Yul shyly stroked the dangerous Esper's back, trying to calm his raging power. Baek Yul gently held Lee Hyun close as golden energy flowed wildly out of his body. The weakness was getting stronger and stronger in Baek Yeol, and Lee Hyun continued to hold her too close. Yeol sneaked a look at Lee Hyun's cold face and caught herself thinking dangerously warm thoughts. Lee Hyun slowly leaned towards Baek Yeol, causing the girl to freeze among the shining sparks. The dangerous Esper suddenly kissed Yeol, and a blindingly bright golden light flashed around them. Baek Yeol was lost in Lee Hyun's warm embrace, surrounded by flowers, glitter, and trembling sparks. The girl tried to convince herself that the kiss was just support, but her heart beat faster and faster. Lee Hyun held Baek Yeol tightly to himself as lights sparkled and petals swirled around him. Baek Yeol stroked Seo Juhwan's hair in fear as he gasped for breath in excruciating pain. Seo Juhwan was shaking under the blanket and crying quietly, and Yeol's heart was painfully squeezed with pity. Baek Yeol gently ran her fingers through Juhwan's dark hair, wishing she could take his suffering for herself. Seo Juhwan slowly calmed down next to Yeol, trustingly falling asleep under her quiet touch. Baek Yeol woke up abruptly in a cold sweat after a bad dream about her long-lost grandmother. The old photo in her trembling hands reminded Yeol of the pain she had hidden for many years. The girl lay in the room, confused, trying to remember why she was again next to the Espers. Baek Yeol recalled the teleportation, the dangerous raid, and Lee Hyun's crazy kiss in the light. Yeol's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as the memory of the dangerous Esper's hot kiss came back to her. Baek Yeol jumped out of bed abruptly, stubbornly convincing herself that it was just support. Baek Yeol sat on her bed, exhausted, trying to remember how her support for Lee Hyun ended. Lee Hyun appeared silently at the door, causing Yeol to flinch in surprise. The dangerous man stood silently in front of Baek Yeol, and the girl awkwardly looked away, embarrassed. Yeol remembered the destroyed streets and realized that it was she who stopped Lee Hyun's mad breakdown. Lee Hyun continued to stare at Baek Yeol motionlessly as the air between them grew heavier. Baek Yeol nervously examined the dangerous man's face, trying to understand his strange reaction. Yeol's gaze slid traitorously to Lee Hyun's lips again, and the girl's cheeks instantly flushed. Baek Yeol suddenly covered her face with her hands, barely containing her panic after thinking about kissing Lee Hyun. Baek Yeol nervously let out a sigh of relief when she saw the calm Lee Hyun right next to her bed. Lee Hyun stood silently in front of the girl while Baek Yeol was confusedly trying to come to her senses. A soft smile appeared on the dangerous Esper's lips, causing Yeol to freeze in place in embarrassment. Lee Hyun extended his hand towards Baek Yeol under the glow of sparks, looking frighteningly handsome and dangerous. Baek Yeol jerked back as Lee Hyun slowly began to approach her bed again. A second later, the dangerous Esper was already pressing Yeol to the mattress, depriving the girl of her last thoughts. Baek Yeol fearfully begged Lee Hyun to let her go, while the boy clung to her even tighter. Lee Hyun buried his face in Yeol's neck, and the girl panicked and tried to understand his condition. Baek Yeol froze in shock, suspecting that the dangerous man had died because of her. Lee Hyun pressed himself closer and closer to Baek Yeol, and the girl listened to his calm heartbeat in her chest. Baek Yeol blushed as the dangerous Esper slept on top of her so comfortably, as if he had found his salvation. The girl tried to get out from under Lee Hyun, but the strong man did not let her go even in his sleep. Baek Yeol gave up tiredly and remained lying next to him, breathing heavily from embarrassment and the heat in her body. Lee Hyun sleepily buried his face in Yeol's neck and quietly asked the girl to stay next to him. Baek Yeol couldn't help but smile as she listened to the muttering of the handsome Esper, who clung to her even in her sleep. Baek Yeol awkwardly stroked Lee Hyun's hair as the dangerous Esper clung to her in his sleep. Lee Hyun begged him not to leave him with a trembling voice, and Baek Yeol hugged the man tighter. Lee Hyun quietly called out to Samul, and fear, pain, and loneliness were hidden in the S-class voice. Baek Yeol listened to Lee Hyun's sobs in embarrassment as the handsome Esper hid his face in her chest. The girl hugged the dangerous man passionately, realizing that she could not leave him alone again. Baek Yul happily called for the doctors while Han Li-hyun was still clinging to her in his sleep. Doctors in white coats ran into the room, beaming with happiness after awakening the dangerous Esper. The medics suddenly froze at the door when they saw Han Li-hyun clinging to the embarrassed Baek Ye-yul. Baek Yul flushed with panic and hastily tried to cover the dangerous man with her arms and a blanket. Han Li-hyun buried his face in the girl's neck, and her heart began to beat faster again from the closeness. The doctors turned pale with shock as Baek Yul desperately tried to salvage the remains of her reputation. The doctors sheepishly left the room, leaving Baek Yul alone with the dangerous and clingy Han Li-hyun. Baek Yul flushed with shame and hugged the Esper tighter, trying to justify herself to the medics. The doctors fled the room with sly smiles, adding fuel to the awkward and heated situation. Baek Yul screamed desperately after the doctors as Han Li-hyun pinned her down onto the bed with all his weight. The girl closed her eyes tiredly, cursing the day when the handsome Esper destroyed the remains of her pride. Han Li-hyun slept peacefully on Baek Yul's chest, and she was already thinking of a plan for her salvation. Baek Yul calmly drank tea among the flowers, dreaming of forgetting the dangerous Han Li-hyun and all this chaos. The girl wearily recalled how she wanted a quiet life without crazy espers, jealousy, and loud fame. Baek Yul choked on her tea in shock when she realized she had slept for almost 10 long days. The girl looked at the screen in confusion, trying to collect her thoughts after a strange and difficult awakening. The news exploded with headlines about Baek Ye-yul and Han Li-hyun, turning her into Korea's new sensation. Baek Ye-yul sat in her chair with a gloomy face as the internet went crazy over her closeness with the Esper. Dogon listened silently to the reports about Baek Ye-yul while a new wave of rumors grew around Han Li-hyun. Dogon remained coldly calm after hearing that Baek Yul's condition had finally stabilized. The kissing photo flashed across the screens again, and Han Li-hyun's name spread throughout Korea. Han Li-hyun did not leave Baek Ye-yul's side for 10 days, and after she woke up, he collapsed next to her, exhausted. Doctors struggled to detach the dangerous Esper from the girl, while he clung to her even in her sleep. Seo Ju-hwan let out a heavy sigh, realizing how insane Han Li-hyun's addiction to Baek Ye-yul had become. Dogon wiped the sweat from his forehead and finally found Baek Ye-yul among the ruined city in energetic chaos. Dogon stood frozen in the ruins, watching as Han Li-hyun greedily held Baek Ye-yul in a shining, supportive embrace. Seo Ju-hwan explained darkly that the dangerous Han Li-hyun could destroy Baek Ye-yul with his monstrous energy. Seo Ju-hwan's voice trembled with anxiety as he realized that Baek Ye-yul was mortally dangerous next to Li-hyun. A bright green wave of power threw Han Li-hyun away, while Dogon did not let anyone near the girl. Dogon sank down next to Baek Ye-yul among the ruins, trying to bring the frightened girl back to her senses. Huge debris fell from the sky as Dogon shielded Baek Ye-yul with his body in the middle of the destroyed area. Dogon sent a green wave of power towards Han Li-hyun, trying to stop the dangerous Esper at any cost. Han Li-hyun stepped forward in a crimson glow, coldly demanding that Baek Ye-yul be returned to him right now. Dogon calmly reminded about the satellites while the whole country watched the crazy S-Class live on air. Han Li-hyun gloomily declared that Baek Ye-yul belonged only to him, losing the last of his control. The blue wave of energy collided with Dogon's green power, destroying the street with a powerful blow. Dogon smiled wryly, realizing that Han Li-hyun's crisis had finally begun to subside next to Baek Ye-yul. Dogon coldly covered Baek Ye-yul with his body and demanded that Han Li-hyun stop losing control. An exhausted Baek Ye-yul lay limply in Dogon's arms amidst the hot ruins and dust. Dogon, with a stern look, ordered that the road be cleared and that Baek Ye-yul be returned to the hospital immediately. Han Li-hyun stood frozen in the middle of the destroyed street while Dogon carried Baek Ye-yul further and further away. The dangerous Han Li-hyun quietly declared that he would take Baek Ye-yul himself and would not give her to anyone. The world's strongest man carried Baek Ye-yul in his arms, not allowing anyone to touch her. Dogon watched with irritation as the dependent Han Li-hyun went crazy over Baek Ye-yul. Dogon coldly checked the preparations for the operation, while the people around him were afraid of Han Li-hyun's new breakdown. With a stony face, Dogon ordered everything to be prepared for a meeting with the dangerous and obsessed Han Li-hyun. Kim Yura silently bowed her head to Dogon, understanding the seriousness of the order. After Han Li-hyun's failure, the city was reduced to ruins, but Dogon managed to save people from mass death. Dogon, with a cold face, confidently promised that the association would protect the residents at any cost. The journalists in the room became animated when the conference turned to questions about the madman Han Li-hyun. Reporter Jang Joo-hyun was the first to get up, ready to uncover the biggest scandal of the year. A photo of Baek Yo-yul next to the dangerous Han Lee-hyun has already spread across the internet and exploded into the news. The journalist's attention immediately switched to Baek Yul, who managed to stop the dangerous monster. Do-gon calmly stated that Baek would soon Yo-yul will become a personal person that Han Lee-hyun will not let go of. Reporters bombarded Do-gon with questions about Baek Yo-yul, the hidden girl next to the dangerous Han Lee-hyun. Do-gon listened silently to the noisy hall while journalists demanded to know the identity of Han Lee-hyun's girlfriend. The excited reporters looked at each other, sensing a huge scandal surrounding the possessed Esper. Do-gon coldly cut off the questions and reminded them that information about Baek Yul was still classified. The disgruntled audience grew even louder when Do-gon refused to reveal details about Baek Yul. Baek Yo-yul sat alone on her hospital bed, reading the news about herself and Han Lee-hyun. The girl wearily clutched her head while the whole world discussed her connection with an insanely dangerous man. The fair-haired Kim Yura entered Baek Yul's room with orders to personally deliver her to Do-gon. Baek Yul's head snapped up when she heard Do-gon's name and realized the seriousness of the situation. Kim Yura calmly introduced herself as the secretary of the central headquarters and immediately got down to business. Tired Baek Yul became tense because after meeting Han Lee-hyun, the surroundings became too dangerous. Kim Yura coldly informed him that Do-gon personally demanded that Baek Yul be brought to him immediately. The whole country admired Do-gon, a dangerous man whom people called a living legend. Baek Yul clenched her hands in anxiety as her intuition screamed about another dangerous encounter with Do-gon. Baek Yul smiled tensely, hoping to quietly disappear home away from the dangerous Do-gon. Cold Kim Yura quickly led the girl down the empty corridor, not giving her time to change her mind. A huge crowd roared outside the hospital, and Baek Yul crouched in fear against the car seat. Kim Yura calmly explained that the reporters were hunting for the girl who saved Han Lee-hyun. Baek Yul turned confusedly toward the underground parking lot while security held back the frantic journalists. In the car, Kim Yura confidently gripped the steering wheel and reminded everyone that everyone was currently looking for Han Lee-hyun. Baek Yul tiredly held her head and convinced herself to stay away from the dangerous Do-gon. The white car sped along the empty highway while the girl made plans to quietly disappear. Baek Yul smiled dreamily, imagining England and a quiet life without crazy men. Kim Yura turned the steering wheel sharply, and a tense voice instantly destroyed the calm ride. A terrified Baek Yul clutched her seatbelt as the car screeched away from the impact on the highway. Kim Yura coldly gripped the steering wheel and ordered to be patient, continuing the mad race along the road. A black car flashed in the mirror, and Baek's heart, Yul's stomach sank with a bad feeling. Baek Yul looked exhausted after the race, and her anxiety only grew before the dangerous Do-gon. Do-gon calmly invited the girl to sit next to him, while the guards tensely watched his every movement. Baek Yul froze in confusion as Do-gon's cold gaze landed directly on her face. Do-gon dryly reported a full recovery, but he himself carefully studied the pale Baek Yul. The girl mentally complained about the terrible day that had drained the last of her strength and nerves. Do-gon asked to wait, and Kim Yura quickly retreated, leaving them alone in silence. Baek Yul watched the men nervously as the heavy atmosphere grew heavier and heavier. The cold Do-gon looked too handsome, and Baek Yul looked away in annoyance and embarrassment. The girl smiled weakly when Do-gon unexpectedly handed her a soft pillow to rest on. Dangerous Do-gon calmly moved the pillow closer, and Baek Yul flushed with confusion from such concern. The girl happily hugged the pillow to her chest, while thoughts of the cold Do-gon drove her crazy. Do-gon confidently began the conversation, and Baek Yul could barely hide her delight next to the dangerous handsome man. Do-gon's cold voice announced the new position, and Baek Yul instantly tensed up in shock. Do-gon transferred the girl directly to himself, making Baek Yul the personal assistant of the most dangerous man. Baek Yul clutched her cup gloomily, realizing that her peaceful life would definitely end next to Do-gon. The girl coldly asked for consent, and Kim Yura exchanged anxious glances with the silent Do-gon. Do-gon openly admitted that he was counting only on her, not wanting to let Baek Yul go to others. Baek Yul abruptly refused to become the girl who calms down the dangerous and dependent Do-gon. Do-gon calmly held his cup of coffee, while Baek Yul nervously tried to argue with the most dangerous man. Cole Do-gon explained that the organization relies on people like the dependent Han Lee-hyun. Baek Yul flushed with panic, reminding everyone that she was an ordinary girl of too low rank. The girl started talking hastily about doctors, hoping to escape from the dangerous work next to Do-gon. Do-gon coldly asked about the prohibitions, and Baek Yul tensed under his attentive gaze. The dangerous man has already collected all of Baekhyul's files, revealing her past and old trauma. Baekhyul turned pale as Dogon calmly discussed her life as if he had been following her for a long time. Dogon's cold voice reminded her of the family's tragedy, and the girl clutched the hot mug in confusion. Baekhyul blinked in fear as the conversation abruptly turned to Dogon's frighteningly calm silence. Dogon stated outright that Paek's past Yul is too boring for a girl with such compatibility. Baekhyul smiled tightly, hiding her irritation at the dangerous man who didn't want to let her go. Dogon tiredly leafed through the reports, irritated by the reporters who were once again hunting for high-profile drama. The cold man reminded Baekhyul that even saving Lee Hyun would not protect her from other people's attacks. Baekhyul tensed up as Dogon calmly analyzed the chaos surrounding Han Lee Hyun's dangerous breakdown. Dogon directly admitted that the girl had perfectly contained the monster, which no one could control anymore. Baekhyul listened somberly as she was suddenly turned into the main symbol of a high-profile incident. Dark silhouettes discussed the association's failure, accusing the leadership of weakness in the face of dangerous espers. Baekhyul reminded Dogon with a trembling voice that Han Lee Hyun had personally gotten involved in a life-threatening operation. Dogon coldly justified the order, hiding the truth from the dangerous man who was losing control without her. Baekhyul jumped up abruptly as the air in the room grew tense with anger, fear, and heavy pressure. The girl fiercely defended Lee Hyun, because without her support, the S-class monster could have died right there. Baekhyul nervously crossed her arms as Dogon confidently laid out the details of the dangerous operation on the shelves. The cold man admitted that the entire plan was calculated in advance in order to save the unstable Han Lee Hyun. In the dark laboratory, scientists confirmed that only Baekhyul's support kept the dangerous esper from breaking down. The glowing documents proved that Lee Hyun's addiction grew along with their frightening compatibility. Dogon sent people after Baekhyul in advance, while a trap for the S-class monster was already being prepared around him. Even kept the teleporter nearby, since if Lee Hyun lost control, he could destroy everything around him in minutes. Baekhyul spread her hands in confusion, trying to understand how Dogon had calculated her actions so accurately. The girl froze with a pale face when she realized how long she had been watched. Baekhyul quietly admitted that the dangerous Lee Hyun had not slept all this time, and was only watching her. The girl lay with her eyes closed while the addicted monster did not move a single step from her bed. Han Lee Hyun eagerly caught every move of Baekhyul, completely forgetting about the people around him. Baekhyul nervously sipped her coffee, hiding her embarrassment after being too closely watched by the dangerous man. The girl gloomily decided that everything around her was already developing according to someone else's harsh scenario without her. Dogon and Yura exchanged silent glances while Baekhyul tried to maintain the remnants of calm at the table. Cold Dogon mockingly suggested that Baekhyul take his place if she didn't like his methods. The girl froze in shock, not understanding why this dangerous man was even saying such a thing. Dogon lazily returned to the conversation and ordered Baekhyul to stay closer for her own protection. Baekhyul clenched her fingers in anxiety, realizing that her peaceful life was rapidly slipping away from her hands. The girl looked tiredly into the darkness, while Dogon continued to press with orders and cold control. Yura calmly conveyed all of Dogon's questions to Baekhyul and was the first to leave the tense negotiation room. The girl froze in the car when she heard that her things had already been transported to the dangerous Han Lee Hyun. Tired, Baekhyul no longer argued, dreaming of forgetting the empty apartment and the entire nightmare she had experienced. Yura drove the car coldly, while the girl tried to understand how deeply Dogon controlled everything. Baekhyul blinked in surprise when she heard talk about the strange resistance to fear of the S-class. Yura admitted that the girl had been too calm in withstanding the monster's pressure, frightening even the association's employees. Baekhyul blushed in confusion, not understanding why everyone around her thought she was abnormally bold around Lee Hyun. In the darkness of the car, Yura remembered how even he felt uneasy next to the dangerous Dogon. The girl nervously turned away to the window, remembering how her words had turned into a ridiculous argument with the monster. Baekhyul suddenly confessed to a strange illness that causes people to die without anyone's attention. The white car sped along the empty road as the girl spoke bitterly about life amidst hatred. Yura suddenly laughed, because even the dangerous Han Lee Hyun joked for the first time only in front of Baekhyul. Baekhyul looked around the luxurious house where the dangerous and dependent Han Lee Hyun was hiding with concern. Yura calmly explained that the S-class monster had long been hidden away from prying eyes. The girl awkwardly agreed, while the silence around the house became more and more heavy and disturbing. The door swung open, causing Baek Yul and Kim Yura to look at each other warily at the unexpected noise. Baek Yul tensed up, trying to understand why Lee Hyun suddenly stopped answering her calls and messages. Kim Yura instantly froze when the dangerous Han Lee Hyun suddenly appeared in front of them wearing a funny apron. The white-haired monster calmly invited the guests inside, completely destroying his entire cold, dangerous image. Baek Yul stared at Lee Hyun in confusion, not believing that the most dangerous man was wearing a bearskin apron. The girl could barely contain her laughter as her thoughts were torn between fear, embarrassment, and a strange tenderness. Kim Yura and Baek Yul were stunned into silence, trying to cope with the sight of a dangerous monster in a cute domestic form. Kim Yura stood guard at the door of the mansion, while Baek Yul felt uneasy from the thick silence. Baek Yul swallowed nervously as the gloomy atmosphere of Lee Hyun's house began to weigh more and more heavily on her. Kim Yura calmly walked inside, and Baek Yul looked at the suddenly lively mansion in confusion. Baek Yul flinched at Lee Hyun's low voice as thick purple energy filled the hallway. Han Lee Hyun stood silently in a cute apron, but his dangerous aura turned the house into a monster's lair. The white-haired Esper calmly held a huge knife, while Baek Yul fearfully grabbed Kim Yura's sleeve. Baek Yul turned pale with fear as Lee Hyun stepped closer to the girls with icy calm, the sharp knife flashing brightly in Han Lee Hyun's hand as his strange invitation sounded more and more alarming. Kim Yura looked at Lee Hyun in shock as the dangerous Esper calmly cooked dinner with his own hands. Baek Yul smiled awkwardly and agreed to stay, trying to hide her trembling in front of the white-haired monster. Han Lee Hyun beamed brightly at her words, and his obsession with Baek Yul became almost frighteningly cute. Lee Hyun happily ran into the kitchen with a knife in his hand, while the girls looked at each other anxiously behind his back. Kim Yura swallowed nervously as the burning smell from the kitchen began to slowly spread throughout the house. Han Lee Hyun calmly placed the food on the table, and Baek Yul looked at the neat dinner in surprise. Baek Yul smiled tensely at the table, trying not to show her fear of the dangerous master of the house. Baek Yul devoured Lee Hyun's dinner with delight, her thoughts revolving around nothing but that taste. The girl laughed happily at the table, and the dangerous Esper watched her with a satisfied smile. Kim Yura sincerely praised Lee Hyun's cooking, while Baek Yul was already asking him for more. Baek Yul beamed with happiness next to Kim Yura, completely forgetting her fear of the dangerous owner of the house. Han Lee Hyun silently placed a new plate in front of Baek Yul, and the pink hearts around it glowed even brighter. Lee Hyun calmly admitted that he destroyed the furniture in his own house to meet Baek Yul. Baek Yul looked at the broken table in confusion, realizing how frightening Lee Hyun's power was. Kim Yura quickly rose from the table as the tense atmosphere in the house grew heavier. Han Lee Hyun coldly reminded him about the watch he had given her, and Baek Yul immediately tensed up under his gaze. Baek Yul obediently showed her watch while Lee Hyun calmly watched her every move. The system's blue screens flickered in the darkness, reminding Baek Yul of the dangerous S-Class controls. Baek Yul beamed happily after Lee Hyun's dinner, completely melted by the obsessed Esper's care. Han Lee Hyun quietly acknowledged his talent, and his calm confidence only attracted the girl more. Baek Yul laughed awkwardly at her past life, while Lee Hyun listened attentively to every word. Han Lee Hyun suddenly announced that he would now personally cook for Baek Yul every day. Baek Yul stood there in confusion as her heart pounded wildly at the words of the dangerous S-Class. Lee Hyun looked at the girl calmly and confidently, as if he had already made a decision for both of them. Baek Yul sheepishly joked about seduction, trying to hide her nervousness in front of Han Lee Hyun. After dinner, Baek Yul decided to help with the dishes despite Lee Hyun's protests. Han Lee Hyun wanted to call a cleaning crew, but Baek Yul confidently declared that she could handle the dishes herself. Baek Yul smiled cheerfully, while Lee Hyun silently watched her contented expression. After dinner, Baek Yul finally saw the aftermath of Lee Hyun's cooking. The kitchen looked like a typhoon had passed through it. Broken dishes, scattered food, and sauce stains all over the countertop made the girl immediately abandon the idea of cleaning everything herself. She offered, with an awkward smile, to simply call a cleaning service, mentally amazed at how it was possible to create such chaos while cooking. While Lee Hyun was calmly checking something on the holographic screen, Baek Yul tried to distract herself from the destroyed kitchen and not think about the scale of the cleaning. The girl enthusiastically showed Baek Yul an elite sofa for dangerous men from the S-Class world. Hearing the price of the furniture, Baek Yul laughed nervously and was afraid to even sit on the luxurious sofa. The snow-white sofa shone in the middle of the room as Baek Yul stood next to it with her fists tense. Curiosity overcame fear, and the girl carefully sat down on the soft cushions of the expensive furniture. The warm comfort of an expensive home quickly relaxed Baek Yul, and luxury hit her straight in the head. Baek Yul collapsed exhausted onto Han Li-hyun's luxurious sofa while the dangerous man watched silently nearby. The girl tiredly rubbed her face and demanded to be shown the room, not wanting to wander around the huge house any longer. Han Li-hyun calmly explained the layout of the rooms, and Baek Yul immediately started talking about the rules of living together. Yul's demands without argument, and sat down opposite her on the sofa. The girl raised her finger with a serious expression, ready to dictate the rules for the dangerous S-class. Baek Yul named support through saliva as the first prohibition, and even Han Li-hyun lost his usual calm. Baek Yul continued her explanation on the soft sofa, and the gray-haired man listened silently, leaving her without an answer. Han Li-hyun frowned darkly under the dark bandage, and Baek Yul suddenly remembered the previous incident and blushed with embarrassment. Baek Yul flushed and waved her hands, trying to justify herself, while Han Li-hyun calmly waited for her confused explanation. Amidst the flying debris, Baek Yul was reminded of the previous crisis when Han Li-hyun, who had lost control, clung only to her. A scene from the past flashed with a bright light. Han Li-hyun hugged Baek Yul tightly to himself, saving himself from madness. As Baek Yul sheepishly denied the special connection, Han Li-hyun turned to her with noticeable interest and warmth. A slight smile touched Han Li-hyun's face, and his joy at what he heard became all too obvious. Baek Yul froze with a confused look, not understanding why Han Li-hyun had become so cheerful so quickly after her words. Baek Yul summed it up sternly and suggested keeping communication to a minimum while maintaining a safe distance. On the light sofa, Baek Yul clarified the new rules, and Han Li-hyun carefully hung on her every word. Han Li-hyun slowly extended his hand forward, and Baek Yul was taken aback by his unexpected submissiveness. Li-hyun's every move seemed careful and gentle, making his obedience look surprisingly cute. In Baek Yul's mind, Han Li-hyun turned into a huge, loyal dog waiting for her approval. Han Li-hyun persistently reached out to her, and the strange memory of his hidden eyes surfaced in her mind again. Baek Yul froze in the midst of a flood of memories, trying to figure out if she had once seen Han Li-hyun's eyes. Han Li-hyun quietly asked about his mistake, and Baek Yul froze for a moment, confused in her own thoughts. Baek Yul suddenly came to her senses and shyly pushed away the memories of the loyal dog and Han Li-hyun's hidden eyes. The more she thought about it, the more confused she became, unable to find an explanation for the strange images in her memory. Baek Yul carefully explained the boundaries of acceptable contact, trying to maintain a safe distance between them. Yul's eyes, causing her to blush deeply. Hiding his face behind a bouquet, Baek Yul hastened to forbid such closeness and return the conversation to a calm channel. Han Li-hyun calmly accepted the new rules, and Baek Yul was already looking for a less dangerous way to support her. Curiosity overcame caution, and Baek Yul hesitantly reached out to touch Han Li-hyun's soft hair. Yul's palm, confirming that her idea had indeed worked. Baek Yul smiled happily, having discovered a new way to support her, and Han Li-hyun calmly accepted her care. Li-hyun's one short confession caught Baek Yul off guard and left her frozen in confusion. Han Li-hyun admitted that he liked the way she touched his hair, and the tension between them immediately disappeared. Baek Yul continued to stroke his head, but inside there was a strange note of inexplicable disappointment. Han Li-hyun sat next to her with a gentle smile, and Baek Yul thought about a more intimate way to support her. Baek Yul quickly put aside her extraneous thoughts and decided to focus on the fact that Han Li-hyun was pleased. Sorting through the light strands, Yul was unexpectedly captivated by their softness and even envied such care. With a wide smile, Baek Yul announced the new rule and confidently chose to support Han Li-hyun's hair. Baek Yul sprawled out on the large bed and breathed a sigh of relief after a busy day next to Han Li-hyun. Lying in silence, Baek Yul went over the events of the day and thought about the Aston family's strange concern. The spacious house, soft light, and cozy atmosphere gradually turned this place into a real corner of comfort. A warm smile touched Baek Yul's face as thoughts of Han Li-hyun filled her head again. A memory of Han Li-hyun wearing a funny apron came to mind, and his unexpected kindness made him feel a little embarrassed. Baek Yul remembered her grandmother's words and wondered what she would say about her current life. Taking the tablet, Baek Yul decided to add Secretary Kim Yu-ra and Han Li-hyun as friends. Loud bangs outside the window broke the silence of the night, and Baek Yul jumped out of bed, listening warily. Amidst the warm light of the stairs, Baek Yul found Han Li-hyun sitting and called out to him in surprise in the middle of the night. Upon learning of the noise, Baek Yul hurried down the steps, worried that Han Li-hyun might have been seriously hurt. Hearing the calm answer, Baek Yul breathed a sigh of relief and was even more afraid of the stairs than of him. After making sure everything was okay, Baek Yo-yul waved her hand and wished Han Li-hyun good night. Han Li-hyun raised his head and replied briefly, seeing Baek Yul off with an unusually gentle expression on his face. Before leaving, Han Li-hyun sent a friend request, and his mood noticeably improved at the thought. In Han Li-hyun's imagination, the word friends shone brighter than the stars, turning into a real reason for happiness. Dogon straightened his tie and a week later inquired about Baek Yul's progress. While Kim Yura listened attentively nearby, Kim Yura reported good news. Baek Yul quickly got used to it, and her frequent sighs aroused Dogon's noticeable interest. Kim Yura praised Han Li-hyun's efforts with a slight smile, and Dogon nodded approvingly in response. Dogon was pleased with the couple's success, but he was still concerned about the decline in public interest. Reports and reviews flashed before my eyes, reminding me that the first news about Baek Yul had caused quite a stir. Dogon recalled the plan to show joint training, and Kim Yura prepared to explain the situation. Kim Yura cautiously reported that the Public Relations Department unexpectedly canceled the publication of the materials. Instead of being on public display, Baek Yo-yul and Han Li-hyun continued their training in private, away from prying eyes. In the spacious hall, Baek Yul confidently greeted Han Li-hyun and calmly asked if he was ready for class. Han Li-hyun agreed without hesitation, and the slight smile on his face betrayed his anticipation of a new meeting. During practice, Baek Yul grabbed Han Li-hyun by the hair, and a golden glow of support instantly engulfed him. Baek Yul hurriedly asked to slow down, barely coping with the growing tension between them. Han Li-hyun breathed heavily and admitted that he could no longer hold back under her persistent encouragement. Behind the glass, the employees watched the training in complete shock, not believing what was happening before their eyes. The unusual method of support caused a storm of discussion, as no one had seen anything like it before. Kim Yura calmly recounted the events to Dogon, explaining her reason for refusing a public demonstration. Even after being persuaded, Baek Yul only agreed when she heard Han Li-hyun's particularly polite requests. The young employee smiled and recalled that the S-class had bowed obediently before the C-class, surprising absolutely everyone. Dogon calmly admitted that Baek Yul's boldness next to the S-class looks both bold and truly unusual. Kim Yura watched Dogon's rare smile in surprise, and then reminded him of Baek Yul's questionnaire. Dogon reported that he had not yet sent a request, but during the check he still came across a strange detail. It turned out that after the tragedy, Baek Yul only moved in with her grandmother a year later, and her past remained a mystery. Kim Yura checked the data and confirmed that not a single official record had survived for that missing period. Old reports revealed that Baek Yul was found near the station with no memory of the missing year and was placed in the care of her grandmother. The yellow documents held only fragments of Baek's past, Yul leaving much of the story unanswered. Dogon summed it up gloomily. Baek Yul disappeared for a whole year and then returned, having completely lost her memory of that time. The image of the destroyed fourth zone appeared before my eyes, reminding me of the bloody rift 15 years ago. Yul's connection to that disaster, Dogon's expression changed dramatically, astonished by the new discovery. Fragments of old memories hit Dogon. Pain, blood, and loss of people from his past came alive again before his eyes. The name of deceased S-class Park Min-soo, connected with the tragedy in the destroyed fourth zone, has surfaced in the archives. People in black stood in the pouring rain, and the heavy atmosphere of the funeral only intensified the bitterness of loss. Dogon thoughtfully touched his chin, trying to connect the new facts with the events of 15 years ago. Without hiding his tension, Dogon asked Kim Yura to find a way to contact the people connected with that incident. Kim Yura acknowledged with alarm that access to this information was almost lost, and traces of the past had long since disappeared. Dogon suggested that Baek Yul's memories could have been artificially altered, and decided to test this theory to the end. Without wasting any time, Dogon ordered his agents to monitor every move and immediately report anything unusual. Kim Yura received an urgent message from the foreign organization MI6 and immediately attracted Dogon's attention. It turned out that an agent codenamed J had illegally entered Korean territory and disappeared without a trace. Dogon rose abruptly from the table when he realized that even the MI6 leadership did not know the agent's whereabouts. Hearing the name J, Kim Yura immediately remembered the mysterious man they had recently met. Dogon tiredly rubbed his temple, trying to understand why a foreign agent needed to hide here. Kim Yura suggested that they urgently warn Baek Yul and Han Li-hyun before the situation became dangerous. Jae's new meeting with Baek Yul could lead to serious problems. Kim Yura suggested testing the new practice on the third-level gate to see the real results in combat. Dogon agreed with the plan, but asked not to put pressure on Baek-yeol and to let her get used to field conditions. 2 hours before the gates opened, Han Lee-hyun appeared at the gathering place, attracting the attention of the other hunters. As the team waited for the operation to begin, the conversation quickly turned to the unusual relationship between Baek-yeol and Han Lee-hyun. The hunters recalled how Baek-yeol kept her distance, but now she increasingly stayed close to him. The discussion became increasingly heated, especially after rumors of closed training sessions without outside witnesses. The mysterious door to the training hall fueled curiosity, as no one ever knew what happened inside. At this time, Baek-yeol flared up with indignation, ready to tear to pieces all the ridiculous rumors about herself and Han Lee-hyun. Han Lee-hyun checked on Baek-yeol before leaving and immediately noticed worrying signs in her emotions. Unexpectedly for everyone, Han Lee-hyun jumped up and rushed away from the gate opening point. The hunters looked at each other in confusion, trying to figure out whether the invasion had begun prematurely. When it became clear that the gates were still closed, the confusion among those gathered only increased. Jokes began to fly that Han Lee-hyun simply couldn't stand being away from Baek-yeol for long and was looking for her again. The conversation quickly turned to his complex character, which had long since become a legend among hunters. Many recalled how Han Lee-hyun ignored his colleagues and only recognized the language of force and his own rules. One of the hunters chuckled, stating that without S-class status, Han Lee-hyun would have been given a lecture long ago. At that moment, an unfamiliar man in a formal suit appeared nearby, instantly attracting attention. The stranger stopped calmly in front of the hunters, and a short question caused the conversation to end abruptly. Baek-yeol coldly cut off the conversation, tired of listening to endless gossip about herself and Han Lee-hyun. Baek crossed his arms. Yeol demanded that they keep their fantasies to themselves, and the hunters were noticeably confused. One of the boys awkwardly tried to justify himself with rumors, but Baek-yeol only frowned more. Under the bright rays of the sun, Baek-yeol firmly stated that there is no romantic relationship between her and Han Lee-hyun. The hunters hastened to feign remorse, but their curiosity did not disappear. One of them was outraged by her reaction, not understanding why ordinary conversations caused so much discontent. Baek-yeol flushed with anger and reminded him that eavesdropping on other people's conversations was far worse than any rumors. One of the hunters hurried to lead his friends away, sensing that the situation was becoming truly dangerous. Baek-yeol slowly raised her head, and her gloomy appearance made the bravest ones nervously step back. The mocking guy tried to turn it into a joke and mentioned Han Lee-hyun again, only making her even more angry. Baek-yeol met the attack with a cold smile and reminded that insults and harassment are punishable by law. Baek-yeol stepped forward and responded to the rudeness without hesitation, showing that she had no intention of backing down. One of the hunters poked her in the forehead and tried to hide behind the name of Han Lee-hyun, hoping to intimidate the girl. Gritting his teeth, Baek-yeol coldly warned him not to touch her, her anger already getting out of control. The hunter confidently reminded them of the rules for protecting guides, confident that he would remain unpunished. The boys mockingly declared that they weren't afraid even of Han Lee-hyun, and Baek-yeol barely contained her irritation. Baek-yeol demanded an official apology and threatened to report the incident to the guide center. When one of the hunters grabbed her arm, Baek-yeol immediately pointed out the attempt to use force. With a smile, she reminded that she now has every right to defend herself and respond to aggression. The overconfident opponent continued to mock, not suspecting how this mistake would end. One precise blow from Baek-yeol instantly deprived the insolent man of confidence, and the bystanders froze in shock. The hunter, wincing in pain, collapsed to the ground while those around him tried to come to their senses from what they had seen. Baek-yeol raised her hand victoriously and calmly declared that this was what proper self-defense looked like. The two hunters were launched into the air by a burst of power, and a stunned roar echoed around the area. Lee-hyun appeared through the clouds of black smoke, and his fury instantly silenced everyone. Baek-yeol hurried to meet him and first checked to see if Han Lee-hyun had been heard on the way. Hearing her voice, Han Lee-hyun froze, and the heavy aura around him became even more dangerous. With one movement, Han Lee-hyun pinned the offenders to the ground and demanded an answer for the attack on his guide. The pale hunters trembled in fear as the threat of a true S-class loomed over them. Baek-yeol loudly stopped Han Lee-hyun before the situation got out of hand. Keeping calm, Baek-yeol reminded that the culprits have already received what they deserved and nothing more is required. Han Lee-hyun leaned closer and reluctantly agreed, trusting Baek-yeol's decision more than his own anger. His sincere concern touched Baek-yeol because Han Li-hyun had rushed here only for her safety. Among the delicate flowers, Han Li-hyun admitted that he couldn't imagine life without Baekye Yul by his side. Yul's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and her heart began to beat faster after these words. Even understanding the true meaning of the confession, Baek Yul couldn't hide her joy at such devotion. With a satisfied smile, Baek Yul enjoyed the moment that unexpectedly made this day much warmer. Baekye Yul gently ran her hand through Han Li-hyun's hair, calming him down after his recent outburst. Surrounded by a warm glow, Baek Yul assured Han Li-hyun that the danger had passed and there was nothing to worry about anymore. From afar, the hunters watched in amazement as Baek easily Yul drives the most dangerous S-Class. Han Li-hyun slowly raised his head, his scarlet eyes flashing with a warning to any overly curious onlookers. Realizing they were caught, the hunters turned pale and hastened to pretend that nothing had happened. Under dozens of gazes, Baek Yul confidently walked across the stage, becoming the main topic of conversation. Whispers quickly spread through the crowd, and the name of Baek Yul was now heard no less often than the name of Han Li-hyun. Baek touched his forehead wearily. Yul mentally resigned herself to the fact that it was no longer possible to stop the rumors. A sharp shout cut through the noise around her, and Baek Yul instantly turned towards the alarmed voice. Among the bright sunflowers, Cecile and Miso ran up to Baek Yul, beaming with joy at the long-awaited meeting. Baek Yul froze in the girl's arms, confused, not understanding how they had appeared so quickly. Cecile and Miso volunteered immediately after the urgent announcement, and specifically found Baek Yul on the list of participants. Miso jumped up from the table and flushed with indignation, ready to personally deal with whoever dared to offend Baek Yul. Cecile crossed her arms and with a displeased grin declared that it was all the fault of the banal envy of adults towards Baek Yul. Miso stated that those around her were simply jealous, because they themselves would like to be close to Han Li-hyun, and that Baekye Yul was the one who first caught his attention. The girls were shocked by such rumors. Baekye Yul was indignant and said that everyone had misunderstood the situation because the rumors about her and Han Li-hyun were completely untrue. She then asked Cecile and Miso for help in fighting the rumors. The friends immediately agreed to help and promised to do everything they could. Yul's plan was to spread other rumors that would displace the old ones. When Cecile asked what specific information should be disseminated, Baek Yul thought for a long time. The conversation turned to raids. Cecile and Miso explained that due to a shortage of guides, they were quickly accepted into the group, but getting to Baek Yul was very difficult. Baek Yul joked that she should file a complaint about this distribution system. After this, Cecile became serious and reported alarming news. Recently, guides have been disappearing frequently. 6 guides have disappeared in the last few months, and 2 more in the last month alone. Hearing this, Baek Yul became very worried. Cecile admitted that they were very worried when they couldn't contact Baek Yul. And then with a smile, she reminded that soon after that, Baek Yul suddenly appeared on the news with Han Li-hyun, leaving her friends completely shocked. Cecile reminded Baek Yul that she herself had previously disbelieved in stories where an S-Class guide becomes the partner of an S-Class Esper, thinking them to be fairy tales. Baek Yul apologized and explained her disappearance. Due to the large number of journalists, she was banned from using the phone. Miso noticed that Baek Yul also packed her things and moved very quickly. To this, Baek Yul replied that when she was brought to her new home, all of her things had already been delivered there in advance. Hearing this, Miso was especially worried about the medicine cabinet, but Baek Yul reassured her, saying that she checked the medicine first. Then the conversation returned to the topic of missing guides, and the friends admitted that this series of disappearances was truly frightening them. Cecile said that after the recent incident with the Espers, an emergency meeting was held between the management and the association. According to her, the situation seemed extremely serious, and the atmosphere in the center became very tense. While they were talking, all employees simultaneously began receiving new notifications on their communication devices. Upon receiving the messages, those present realized that something important had happened, and everyone's attention in the room immediately turned to the breaking news. Baek Yul immediately became wary, and Han Li-hyun froze with a stony face. District leaders appeared on the screens one after another. Fatigue and irritation were evident even through the video link. The leaders demanded urgent assistance, as without reinforcements, the people might not be able to cope with the impending disaster. The spacious conference room filled with heavy tension. Everyone tried to protect their district and their subordinates. Dogon sat at the head of the long table and calmly listened to the stream of complaints, not giving in to the general chaos. So Ju-hwan admitted with some difficulty that the center is experiencing a crisis. There are fewer and fewer girls capable of calming down dangerous men. Dogon frowned and thought, hearing that there had always been few girls capable of calming down dangerous men, but now there were almost none left. In a bright office, So Juhwan explained that there are plenty of candidates across the country, but only a few are entering the system, and the crisis continues to escalate. When asked about the time frame, So Juhwan calmly replied that the crisis had been going on for 2 years and was continuing to gain momentum. At a long table, the meeting participants discussed whether candidates could be forced to register and held accountable for refusal. Dogon listened attentively to the explanation about the 3-year grace period that violators are given to correct the situation. The man in the chair confidently stated that a large number of dangerous men do not create problems and maintain balance on their own. His words caused a storm of indignation, and the tension in the room flared up so quickly that his colleagues could barely contain themselves. Discontent grew with each passing second, and the participants had to calm each other down to avoid disrupting the meeting. The spacious conference room fell silent again as the conversation returned to the core issue of the crisis. Dogon coldly stated that everyone present bore some responsibility for the growing crisis and could no longer turn a blind eye to it. One participant pointedly pointed out that dangerous men are increasingly losing control without warning, putting others at risk. The atmosphere in the room grew even more tense when they started talking about the fear of ordinary people in the face of new outbreaks of power. Dogon tried to calm the crowd, explaining that the investigation was ongoing with the police and would take time. His words were met with a wave of indignation, and the spacious meeting room was instantly filled with dissatisfied cries. The woman with a heavy gaze sharply objected, demanding that all awakened ones be immediately taken under control and the chaos stopped. At the round table, participants discussed the political scandal, while the association's name was increasingly mentioned among the accusations. The bright hall filled with tension when they started talking about the party leader who openly spoke out against the organization. The blonde man, with a slight grin, reminded that even the most influential people in the country are wary of the association. The woman with short hair sarcastically compared this path to the road from show business straight to the presidential chair. Dogon calmly explained that it is not the abilities that frighten people, but the incompetent owners of dangerous power. So Juhwan turned the conversation to finding solutions, reminding them that the previous crisis had already been brought under control. One by one, the participants supported the idea of action, realizing that retreating under pressure was no longer an option. The head of the first rescue team reported that the police only make promises and hardly share the results. Under the golden light of the lamps, Dogon proposed strengthening the girls' protection and increasing the supply of necessary medications. As the meeting was about to move on, a sharp statement about a suspicious incident made Dogon wary. After the loud announcement, Dogon leaned forward, and the entire room focused its attention on the unexpected version of what was happening. Purple lights flashed on the screen as the presenter explained that a simple loss of control looked too suspicious here. After reviewing the reports, she found that the male victims had received support before the incidents and were not left without help. Dogon's face became more serious as new facts began to destroy the usual explanation for all the breakdowns. There was a commotion among the participants, and several people immediately demanded that data from other regions be verified. A blonde man from the 1st District recalled a similar case where a dangerous man lost control shortly after taking the drug. More and more coincidences surfaced, and those gathered promised to immediately sort out the strange pattern. Looking at the chain of facts, Dogon realized that the disparate details added up to one disturbing picture. One of the leaders cautiously admitted that there is no direct evidence yet, but the shortage of girls is increasingly surfacing alongside dangerous incidents. Dogon quickly took control of the situation and ordered all regions to urgently collect data on every such case. In a warmly lit room, So Juhwan received a new assignment to convince capable girls to officially join the system. Blue holograms flashed above the table as Dogon unexpectedly called the head of one of the departments. The tense silence was broken by disturbing news. A girl named Pek Yen disappeared without a trace. Meanwhile, there was a commotion at the gates that had opened in the Good Thin Mountains, and Yun's battle group was already preparing to leave. Despite the lack of urgent calls, the squad decided to advance closer to the danger zone and assess the situation. Amidst the jokes and smiles, the girls unanimously admired the Esper Han Li Hyun, who was considered the real star of the team. As a child, Yuna was embarrassed by her grandmother's loud praise, who proudly showed everyone her perfect results. Only years later did the girl realize how much happiness was hidden in the sincere smile of her loved one. A red bus stopped at the shining gates, and teams and observers were already gathering around it. Under the bright sky, the girls looked at the portal with interest, finding themselves so close to the danger zone for the first time. Blue lightning flashed along the edges of the gate as the participants discussed the upcoming cleanup and tried not to worry. A fighter approached the team and asked them to wait for the guide, Yeo and the Esper Han Li-hyun, who were supposed to arrive later. Hearing the name Han Li-hyun, one of the girls noticeably perked up and was already dreaming of the long-awaited meeting. With a satisfied smile, she opened the data on the holographic screen, preparing for another support training session. Past lessons came back to mind, where the difference in strength between her and Han Li-hyun was felt especially strongly. Under the rays of the sun, Baek-yeol wondered if she should find a secluded place away from prying eyes. Many believed the beautiful rumors about compatibility, not realizing how far the truth was from fantasy. Her thoughts were interrupted when a white-haired guy appeared in front of her, left almost without hair after another experiment. His carefree smile made Baek-yeol laugh, and her soul suddenly felt light and calm. The man's shining back of the head looked so ridiculous that the girl could hardly contain her laughter. However, after just a moment, Baek-yeol recoiled in fear, imagining that at this rate he might remain bald forever. Baek-yeol looked thoughtfully at her palm, thinking about her future meeting with Han Li-hyun and the upcoming support. The calm was interrupted by an alarm signal. An urgent call related to Han Li-hyun came to her bracelet. The glowing screen showed alarming data. The dangerous man's vital signs were rapidly declining. Hearing the name Baek-yeol, the staff rushed across the camp towards her, not hiding their panic in haste. The girl turned around sharply as the air nearby was distorted by a flash of purple energy. A dark crack opened up behind her, sucking in space and scattering purple sparks around. In front of the stunned eyes of the people, Baek-yeol was lifted into the air and then pulled straight into the rift. A second later, there was no trace of the girl, and the alarming news of her disappearance through the closed gates spread throughout the area. In the center of the dungeon, the hunters surrounded the core, and golden bolts of power crashed into the swirling purple energy. Han Li-hyun was about to leave the gate when one of the fighters suddenly called out to him at the exit. The commander calmly announced that the core had been destroyed and that the group only had to wait for the miners to return. Hearing the name Baek-yeol, Han Li-hyun visibly tensed up, which immediately caused a satisfied grin from his interlocutor. The man with a sly squint said that he has an excellent sense of the atmosphere between people and easily recognizes such feelings. Li-hyun's cheeks almost flushed with embarrassment as his comrade continued to tease him about Baek-yeol. The commander continued to tease Han Li-hyun about Baek-yeol, enjoying his increasingly embarrassed reaction. The cheerful conversation was interrupted at the same moment when a desperate cry from the leader was heard from the depths of the dungeon. The fighters' faces stretched in shock. The destroyed core did not disappear, but reappeared and became even larger. Purple streams of energy tore through space as the hunters tried to understand the reason for what was happening. A bright flame fell upon the anomaly, but every attack dissolved without the slightest result. The workers looked at each other in confusion, watching the situation spiral out of control right before their eyes. The first monsters emerged from the swirling darkness, and alarm instantly turned to panic. A huge monster with scarlet eyes rushed forward, forcing the people to retreat in horror. The miners began to run towards the exit as the roar of the monsters echoed throughout the dungeon. The commander thundered, ordering the miners to retreat immediately as the battle group prepared to meet the wave of monsters. Black energy swirled around Han Li-hyun, and his calm figure inspired more fear than the monsters themselves. Gritting his teeth, Han Li-hyun thought only of Baek-yeol, whom he wanted to return to as soon as possible. Ugly creatures with burning eyes crawled out of the cracks, greedily rushing towards the people. A blue glow flashed in the darkness as Han Li-hyun released his power and sent it straight towards the advancing monsters. Baek-yeol stood up from the ground in the middle of the gloomy purple dungeon, confused, not understanding how she ended up there. With trembling fingers, the girl activated the bracelet, hoping to see a saving signal or a familiar message. A dim light illuminated her face as disturbing thoughts, one after another, formed into a terrible guess. Having looked around at the endless dark vaults, Baek-yeol realized in horror that she had been sucked straight into the dungeon. Baek-yeol looked up at the dark vault of the cave, where drops of cold water were slowly falling from the ceiling. The realization hit harder than fear. The girl really found herself alone inside the dungeon with no way back. Having collected his thoughts, Baek-yeol forced herself to calm down and began to look for a way out on her own. Clenching her fists, she vowed to get out of here alive and not lose a single coin from her first big paycheck. The blue help screen flickered in her palms as she frantically searched for any information about the dungeons. Among the purple rocks, Baek-yeol walked forward with the dim light of her bracelet, hoping to meet a rescue team. The more she recalled the rules of the system, the more clearly she realized that help might not be forthcoming. The thought of Han Li-hyun made her stop abruptly, because without the support of a guide, it would be difficult for him too. Raising the lantern higher, the girl continued on her way, hoping that one day a person would be found who could take her place. In the dead silence of the dungeon, Baek Yeol bitterly remembered that no one ever prepared backup guides for such cases. The thought of another guide next to Han Li-hyun made Baek's heart clench painfully. Although right now she should only be thinking about survival. Deep in the dungeon, Han Li-hyun suddenly stopped as he sensed a familiar presence and quietly called out the name Baek Yeol. The girl pressed her palm to her chest and forced herself to push away her disturbing thoughts, concentrating on salvation. To avoid panic, Baek Yeol convinced herself again and again that everything would definitely end well. Suddenly, a damaged communication screen flashed in front of her, causing the girl to freeze in surprise. Lee Hyun's face appeared through the digital static, and Baek Yeol could hardly believe her eyes. With trembling hands, she grabbed the screen and quickly described how she was sucked inside right next to the gate. Han Li-hyun explained that she had entered a distorted dungeon where spatial rifts were pulling people inside. Hearing his calm voice, Baek Yeol calmed down a little and immediately asked about his condition. Han Li-hyun waved off the medication and confidently declared that he would cope perfectly well without it until their meeting. The girl flushed with excitement and began to convince him to be more careful because the price of a mistake was too high. An almost comical argument erupted on screen as Baek Yeol desperately tried to get through to the stubborn man. Lee Hyun's firm promise to definitely find her left the girl speechless for a moment. The connection was lost, and his last instructions about the hidden dangers of the dungeon remained in his memory. Left alone among the purple rocks, Baek Yeol remembered the useful function of the watch and saw a chance to get out alive. Baek Yeol opened the monster radar with hope, hoping to see an empty map and continue on her way calmly. The scarlet glow of the screen made the girl wary, because she had never used this function before. Trying to understand the device's readings, Baek Yeol didn't immediately notice the strange rustling sound behind her. A terrifying creature with a huge mouth burst out of the darkness, causing the girl to jerk back. The bright light in her hand stopped the monster, and Baek Yeol seized this chance as salvation. The excitement vanished the moment new growls and flapping of wings began to be heard around. Looking up, the girl froze in horror, discovering dozens of hungry creatures with burning eyes around her. The huge flock slowly closed in on all sides, turning the small island of light into a last defense. The realization came too late. The screen was red not because of an error, but because of the countless number of monsters around. The purple mist quickly spread throughout the dungeon, and Baek Yeol found herself in the very center of a deadly trap among the monsters. Remembering the words of the dangerous Han Li-hyun, the girl pinched her nose and desperately tried not to inhale the mysterious poison. A strange whistle cut through the silence, causing Baek Yeol to tense up even more and frantically search for the source of the sound. Panic washed over her as the terrible thought flashed through her mind that some of the fog had already gotten inside. Everything began to swim before her eyes, and the purple haze began to swirl like bright sparks, clouding the girl's consciousness. From the depths of the dungeon emerged an elegant stranger with blonde hair and a black umbrella in his hands. While the monsters growled around, the man walked calmly and confidently, not paying attention to the mortal danger. Baek Yeol could barely stand on her feet and decided that the strange stranger appeared due to the influence of the fog. A second later, the girl woke up on a cold stone and looked around the empty space around her in confusion. Next to him lay the same man in an expensive suit, who had just recently walked through the crowd of monsters. Heart of Baek Yeol trembled because the mysterious man turned out to be real, and not a figment of her frightened imagination. Now, the dangerous stranger was very close, and the girl understood that their destinies had unexpectedly crossed. Baek Yeol quickly realized that the mysterious handsome man had been drawn into the dungeon by the same anomaly that had pulled her in. The girl carefully approached the stranger and tried to bring him to his senses, checking his reaction to the voice. The blonde man lay unconscious so peacefully that Baek Yeol momentarily forgot about the danger around her. The longer she looked at his face, the more she was struck by his magazine cover-worthy appearance. The thought that the dangerous handsome man was not coming to his senses made her think about supporting the victim. As soon as Baek Yeol leaned closer, the man suddenly opened his eyes and made the girl jump in fright. The automatic time changer started working immediately, but the stranger's first words left Baek Yeol completely stumped. After a short exchange of phrases, the girl realized that she had not heard the meaning she expected to hear. The fair-haired man with a sly smile decided to tease Baek Yeol and asked an extremely awkward question. The unexpected hint made the girl freeze with burning cheeks, not believing that it was said right now. The young man easily endured Beck Yule's icy gaze and immediately showered her with compliments among the blue rocks of the dungeon. Against the backdrop of soft pink flowers, he pressed his palm to his chest and spoke so confidently about the kiss that Beck Yule was shocked. The dangerous, handsome man did not retreat. Beck Yule abruptly cut off his attempts to get closer, considering the guy a real madman. Under the flickering blue light, they continued their journey through the dungeon, while the young man calmly checked her condition. Beck Yule studied the glowing screen with the data about the missing Han Li-hyun and became increasingly interested in her companion. The young man, smiling softly, twirled his umbrella in his hand when the conversation suddenly turned to his foreign appearance. The young man carefully studied Beck Yule and associated her unusual appearance with her blonde hair and blue eyes. Among the cold purple rocks, his genuine surprise only made Beck Yule more wary. Beck Yule looked at her companion in confusion, trying to understand the reason for his strange questions about her appearance. As the young man walked through the dungeon with an umbrella in his hand, Beck Yule kept making new guesses. Listing the colors of his clothes, Beck Yule expected the usual reaction but received a much more unexpected answer. Hearing about the olive green shade, the young man perked up, and Beck Yule's surprise grew even stronger. In a golden glow of joy, the boy approached Beck Yule, happy that he could finally distinguish colors. Beck Yule tried to remember the mysterious man's past, but the faces of the people around her blurred and slipped from her memory. The more she exerted her S-class skill, the more alarming it became that the ability had malfunctioned. The young man with shining eyes moved closer to Beck Yule, curiously asking her about her rank. Hearing the answer, the guy laughed cheerfully and admitted that he took her for a real elite among dangerous people. The atmosphere quickly became lighter, and the young man proudly boasted of his knowledge of 10 languages. In the cold light of the dungeon, Beck Yule sincerely thanked her companion for his help, surprising him with her reaction. In a warm golden glow, Beck Yule called her savior her hero, and then introduced herself by name for the first time. The young man smiled broadly at Beck Yule and asked her to call him Jerry, quickly closing the awkward distance. Beck Yule looked at her companion with interest, trying to understand whether he was one of the dangerous espers. Against the backdrop of swirling purple fog, Jerry admitted that he had carried Beck Yule out of the danger zone in his arms. Under the cold glow of the dungeon, he easily showered Beck Yule with compliments, not hiding his admiration at all. Jerry suddenly became more serious. Beck Yule became wary, noticing the change in his mood. Amidst the red roses and soft light, Jerry came too close, causing Beck Yule to lose her patience. With one sharp movement, Beck Yule pushed the intrusive handsome man away, instantly stopping his antics. Jerry calmly rubbed his injured hand, and Beck Yule was only more surprised by his inhuman strength. While Beck Yule was looking for an explanation for his oddities, Jerry looked at her with a mysterious smile. The dungeon once again reminded them of the mortal danger, and Beck Yule spoke gloomily about the possible death of everyone around. Jerry pressed Beck Yule against the wall of the dungeon and continued his daring hints among the red roses with a dangerous smile. When the distance between them had almost disappeared, Beck Yule abruptly stopped the intrusive handsome man with one word. Unfazed, Jerry continued the game, and Beck Yule reminded him that her partner would arrive very soon. Hearing the threat of a knee, the guy instantly lost confidence, and his bright eyes widened in fear. In his own fantasies, Jerry already saw himself as a victim of the stern Beck Yule and mentally begged for mercy. Upon learning of his partner's imminent arrival, Jerry immediately perked up and bombarded Beck Yule with new questions. Lee Hyun's name made the boy wary, and Beck Ye Yule's jokes completely deprived him of peace. When Jerry realized that Beck Yule was working as a guide, the tension noticeably eased from his shoulders. The guy theatrically grabbed his chest and began to complain of pain, begging for support from his savior. Beck Yule looked at Jerry with disbelief, trying to figure out where the game ended and the truth began. Not wanting to listen to any more complaints, she nevertheless agreed to help, which immediately made the guy happy. Jerry immediately extended his hand with a beaming smile, offering the most ridiculous treatment. In response, Beck Yule looked at him silently, her patience rapidly reaching its limit. Golden energy flared around the girl as she decided to heal Jerry in her own way, without further ado. A golden glow enveloped Jerry as Beck Yule used the non-contact direction, not wanting to close the distance. Jerry immediately remembered the rumors about the kiss with Han Li-hyun, and Beck Ye Yule's patience was rapidly running out. Having heard the refusal, the guy sat down thoughtfully among the purple rocks, clearly thinking up a new adventure. A second later, Jerry made such a strange proposal that Beck Yule froze in amazement. With an unperturbed expression, he began to talk about the power of biological fluids, causing the girl to blush with indignation. Jerry continued speaking with complete seriousness, and Peck Yule no longer understood whether he was joking or not. Under the soft pink glow, the guy again went into danger, asking her to spit in his mouth, which completely left Beck Yule speechless. Among the red roses and petals, Jerry continued his dangerous flirtation, and Beck Yule was already losing her patience. The boy raised his head with a dreamy smile, enjoying Beck Yule's embarrassment far more than he should have. Beck Yule loudly cleared her throat, trying to bring the conversation back to normal and maintain calm. Her face darkened with irritation as the stream of crazy hints finally crossed all boundaries. Jerry immediately realized the change in mood and tried to cope, maintaining his usual carefree demeanor. Beck Yule decided to end this performance by force, and Jerry still hoped for luck. Blue energy flared in the dungeon, causing the girl to turn sharply at the strange movement nearby. Only a trace remained where Jerry had been, and Beck Yule stared at the empty space in confusion. A moment later, a powerful aura exploded in the cave, causing the air around it to tremble. The stranger held Jerry down with one hand, displaying overwhelming strength with a blindingly bright energy. Seeing the white hair and familiar aura, Beck Yule immediately recognized Han Li-hyun, who had arrived directly in the dungeon. Han Li-hyun coldly apologized to Beck Ye-yu for being late, while continuing to hold Jerry down with overwhelming force. Even in such a situation, Jerry did not lose his composure and hastened to correct his name with his usual smile. Hearing his voice, Han Li-hyun completely lost his temper, and the electric aura flared even brighter. Tension immediately rose between the two dangerous men, and Beck Yule rushed to stop them. Han Li-hyun icily clarified how far Jerry had gone with his antics around Beck Ye-yul. This question made Beck Yule flush with indignation, and her thoughts became even more confused. Without waiting for an answer, Han Li-hyun rushed forward and hit Jerry with the obvious intention of teaching him a lesson. Blue lightning cut through the air of the dungeon as Han Li-hyun tried to reach his restless opponent. Beck Yule quickly hung on his arm, reminding him that the person in front of him was only an F-class Esper. Jerry sat on the stone floor and calmly argued that even the weakest Esper could not have gotten here alone. Beck Yule supported his arguments, explaining the appearance of an S-class guide in such a dangerous place. Instead of gratitude, Jerry began to complain about the harassment of the guide, causing Beck Yule to blush with shame. The girl immediately refuted his words, calling what happened an absurd misunderstanding and a figment of his imagination. Jerry tried to object, but Beck Yule instantly silenced him with one sharp shout. After a short pause, she smiled warmly at Han Li-hyun and called him her savior. Hearing this, Han Li-hyun noticeably calmed down, and the atmosphere between them became much softer. Jerry beamed with happiness next to Beck Yule, which instantly irritated Han Li-hyun. The story about the poisonous fog made Han Li-hyun frown, because everything in the dungeon looked suspicious. Han Li-hyun thoughtfully analyzed what he had heard, while the disturbing details came together to form a strange picture. Amidst the swirling purple darkness, the bodies of monsters that had died before they could attack floated to the surface. After hearing his partner's conclusions, Beck Yule suddenly became wary and prepared herself for unpleasant discoveries. Jerry introduced himself with his full name with a sly smile, clearly enjoying the reaction of those around him. A skirmish broke out between the two dangerous men again, and Beck Yule found herself right between them. Looking at their behavior, the girl increasingly felt that big problems awaited her ahead. To distract Han Li-hyun, Beck Yule gently offered to support him through touch. Their palms touched gently, and the stern Esper suddenly felt embarrassed by such closeness. Beck Yule calmly directed the energy, trying to ease her partner's condition and return him to control. A golden light enveloped their hands, and Han Li-hyun stabilized much faster than usual. Even through the blindfold, he looked more relaxed, enjoying the unusual calm. The intertwined fingers held the connection tighter and tighter, and Beck Yule could no longer understand the reason for the strange excitement. Amidst the soft pink glow, the girl increasingly found herself thinking thoughts that were becoming dangerously personal. Holding Han Li-hyun's hand, Beck Ye-yul suddenly realized that their faces were too close. Jerry appeared next to me with a meaningful smile and immediately felt out of place in this atmosphere. Watching them, the guy barely concealed his disappointment, while Beck Yule looked away in embarrassment. Han Li-hyun stood next to Beck Yule in a golden glow of support, while Jerry demonstratively turned away. Despite the situation, Jerry looked pleased and admitted that he hadn't had this much fun in a long time. The amusement faded as his green eyes turned serious and caught the sight of something huge approaching. Han Li-hyun instantly became wary, sensing the same danger among the stone walls of the dungeon. The dungeon shook from a heavy rumble. Baek Yul looked around in confusion for the source of the new threat. Han Lee-hyun complained tiredly about his endless problems as the anxious energy thickened around him. Jerry created a blue barrier around Baek Yul and Han Lee-hyun, prepare to face the danger first. A group of people ran out of the green glow of the corridor, joyfully announcing that the missing people had finally been found. Under the protection of the barrier, Baek Yul and Han Lee-hyun looked at each other in surprise, not understanding what was happening. The girl looked ahead in confusion when a familiar figure appeared among the arrivals. The boss appeared in a blaze of digital symbols, and Baek Yul immediately realized that the situation had changed. The department head walked out through the gloomy dungeon with confident steps, causing Baek Yul to breathe a sigh of relief. Baek Yul froze in surprise while Han Lee-hyun silently watched the leader's unexpected appearance. Han Lee-hyun calmly stated that they were about to leave, seeing no reason to worry. Kim Yura indignantly reminded them that the department head had personally come to their aid while the others were calmly talking. Han Lee-hyun coldly declared that he was capable of protecting Baek Yul himself, and the air around him instantly filled with tension. The department head calmly objected, but behind his words was a warning that made the atmosphere become heavier. The confrontation between the two dangerous men flared up again, and Baek Yul just tiredly waited for the next scandal. Kim Yura reassured Baek Yul, assuring her that behind the constant quarrels lay an unexpectedly strong mutual understanding. As the rescue team gathered around, Baek Yul suddenly remembered Jerry. She quickly found a familiar figure among the crowd and breathed a sigh of relief, making sure that he was okay. Looking back on recent events, Baek Yul admitted that Jerry caused a lot of trouble, but he still remained her savior. Having barely escaped from the dungeon, Baek Yul found herself in the arms of a worried Miso who was beside herself. Miso grabbed her friend's hand tightly and pulled her forward, refusing to believe that it was all over. Under the lights of the medical camp, Miso called out loudly for the doctor, demanding that he examine Baek Yul immediately. Upon learning that Baek Yul had spent so much time in the dungeon, the doctor immediately became serious and prepared an examination. In the warm evening light, the medic took a blood sample, and Baek Yul patiently followed all the instructions. The unexpected call made Miso wary, and the girl was distracted by an urgent message. Before leaving, Miso once again asked Baek Yul to calmly recover and promised to return soon. After the examination, the doctor informed Baek Yul that the urgent analysis was completed and the detailed results would be ready later. Just as she was about to leave, the girl heard mysterious words about lost memories and stopped abruptly. The man introduced himself as the director of the research center and immediately attracted Baek Yul's attention. In the evening lights of the camp, he calmly declared that he knew a way to bring back memories that had disappeared a year ago. His voice sounded confident, and his strange smile made Baek Yul feel growing uneasy. The director promised to help at any time, leaving too many questions after his words. Yul's attention and the atmosphere around him became heavy and uneasy. Suddenly, Han Lee-hyun appeared nearby and instantly stood between the girl and the mysterious interlocutor. The director tried to explain the situation as a routine medical consultation, maintaining an outward calm. Han Lee-hyun looked at him with open disbelief, demanding an explanation for his strange appearance. Baek Yul looked between the men in confusion, realizing that they had known each other for a long time. The director continued to justify himself, calling himself an ordinary doctor who was there on call. Blue lightning flashed around Han Lee-hyun as the dangerous Esper's patience finally ran out. The next moment, the director found himself on the ground, and the tension around him became even stronger. Han Lee-hyun lashed out at the director in a rage, and the blue lightning around him became more and more dangerous. Lee-hyun's strength, adding fuel to the fire. With a sly smile, the man recalled the past and openly provoked the dangerous Esper to a new outburst of anger. Lee-hyun let out a scream, and the air around him shook with his unstable and frightening power. Baek Yul approached him cautiously, realizing that the situation was getting worse. In the soft evening light, she quietly called Lee-hyun's name, distracting him from his rage. Hearing her request to return home, Lee-hyun suddenly calmed down and agreed without arguing. The staff helped the director up, outraged by the dangerous Esper's behavior in front of an ordinary person. But Baek Yul hardly listened to them because she was much more worried about Lee-hyun's condition. With a warm smile, the girl offered to take his hand again, wanting to support and reassure him. Lee-hyun was noticeably embarrassed by such concern, and the atmosphere between them became much softer. When their palms met again, Baek Yul smiled tenderly, but Lee Hyun was completely at a loss. Amidst the flowers and golden light, they walked away together, holding hands, and Lee Hyun no longer tried to resist. Kim Yura reported that she was ready to take off, and the department head calmly prepared to leave the camp. Upon hearing the address, the man immediately recognized the secretary and answered briefly without unnecessary emotion. Kim Yura watched her boss in confusion, trying to figure out where exactly his gaze was directed. Under the night sky, her attention was drawn to Baek Yeol and Han Lee Hun, who were standing too close to each other. Looking at the couple among the camp lights, Kim Yura wondered what was going on between them. Baek Yeol recalled how the department head personally went out to search for her immediately after the news of her disappearance. The more she thought about it, the more surprised she became by the unusual excitement of such a cold-blooded man. For a moment, Baek Yeol had an unexpected thought that made her feel embarrassed. Kim Yura abruptly dismissed the idea and hurried after her boss to the waiting helicopter. Baek Yeol looked through the list of participants, trying to find Jerry Yoker, but the name of the mysterious savior did not appear there. Another face appeared on the screen, and the investigation quickly took an unexpected turn. The department had revealed the truth. A British intelligence agent nicknamed Jay was hiding behind the name Jerry. The cold beauty turned out to be an S-class with a toxic fog and scandalous fame throughout the country. Hearing this, Baek Yeol and Han Lee Hyun were both indignant, remembering his deception and strange behavior. Yule's imagination conjured up a whole storm of rumors around Jerry, making the picture even more absurd. The girl only sighed heavily, not understanding how such a person could even work as a secret agent. The department head sternly warned Baek Yeol to stay away from the dangerous man with a bad reputation. Baek Yeol obediently agreed, and Han Lee Hyun immediately supported the advice with unexpected seriousness. But the next moment, Jerry himself appeared next to him with a sly smile, clearly having heard the entire conversation. Baek Yeol turned sharply to Jerry Yoker, reminding the dangerous, handsome man of his strange rescue and recent deception. With her eyes flashing, the girl unleashed a stream of reproaches on him, demanding an explanation for the suspicious story with the poisonous fog. Jerry calmly demonstrated a rare detoxification skill that dispelled the poison and pulled Baek Yeol out of trouble. For a second, Baek Yeol was at a loss, but quickly flushed again, dissatisfied with the fact that the truth had been hidden until the very end. Han Lee Hyun looked gloomy next to her, and the girl herself could barely contain herself, watching the Briton's smug smile. Jerry suddenly offered to take the hit instead of Han Lee Hyun, completely throwing Baek Yeol off balance. Jerry Yoker, with a beaming smile, announced that he no longer needed an interpreter and proudly enjoyed the effect he had produced. Among the rose petals, the dangerous, handsome man confessed to Baek Yeol that he wouldn't mind being hit by her. Han Lee Hyun, Baek Yeol, and the department head simultaneously froze with stony faces, shocked by the Briton's insane statement. Baek Yeol walked down the corridors of the base next to Kim Yura, listening to a new story about Jerry Yoker's scandalous past. 2 years ago, a dangerous, handsome man disrupted a secret operation by releasing a toxic fog right in the middle of a Mexican casino. Unaware of his true intentions, agents considered Jerry a threat and began hunting for the mysterious troublemaker. Kim Yura told Baek Yeol an old story about Jerry Yoker, recalling his most notorious and wild adventures. At a luxury casino, agents spotted a dangerously handsome man next to a stunning blonde and immediately suspected something was wrong. Jerry responded to the provocation with a dazzling smile, which completely confused the woman and thwarted her plans. The blonde quickly realized that her attempt at manipulation had failed, and the mysterious man only laughed at the situation. Hearing the insolent words about the disguised agent, she flushed with anger, while Jerry barely concealed his amusement. Despite a long hunt, the Briton was unable to be caught, and later a completely unexpected truth was revealed. It turned out that Jerry was working against a criminal organization and causing chaos for his own strange methods of fighting. Baek Yeol asked incredulously, not understanding how such a mess could even be called entertainment. Footage of the official apology appeared on the screen, after which the story turned into an international scandal. Jerry and his mysterious partner were the center of attention, and it proved impossible to control such dangerous men. Kim Yura admitted that now, Jerry feels almost free of restrictions and rules in Korea. With news about Britain swirling around, Baek Yeol listened intently to the story of his influence and reputation. The management even hoped to lure Jerry to Korea, to hunt monsters and compete with the strongest espers. After these words, Baek Yeol immediately associated the appearance of the Briton with the name Han Lee Hyun. Kim Yura did not deny the guess, leaving room for new suspicions and questions. Seeing Han Lee Hyun, Baek Yeol imagined a grand clash between two dangerous S-classes. Smiling among the delicate petals, the girl still refused to believe that Jerry could be a real madman. The department head listened with a stony face to Jerry Yoker's statement about wanting to arrange a duel with Han Li-hyun. Upon hearing the reason for the dangerous Briton's visit, even the imperturbable boss couldn't hide his slight surprise. Jerry, his eyes shining, immediately listed his favorite options for a future confrontation, from hugs to a real fight. After a short pause, the head of the department calmly accepted the information, leaving the Briton incredibly pleased with himself. Jerry rubbed his temples wearily and admitted defeat before the Korean language, which stubbornly refused to submit to him. The department head pointed coldly at the translator, and the atmosphere between the men became even more tense. Dogon reminded that Jerry could have appeared in the dungeon earlier and stopped the disaster at the very beginning. A sly smile flickered across Jerry's lips as his attention suddenly shifted to something much more interesting. Dogon sipped his coffee silently, and the silence in the office became more dangerous than any loud argument. Leaning back in his chair, Jerry admitted that instead of the rescue operation, he preferred to watch the fight between two monsters. Dogon looked straight at Jerry and made it clear that if he touched his people, there would be a lot more trouble. The spacious office filled with cold tension, but Jerry only settled more comfortably in the chair opposite. The next second, the dangerous man shattered the serious atmosphere with a statement so insane that even the walls would have been embarrassed. Dogon froze with the cup in his hand, trying to decide whether he had actually heard it or imagined it. Jerry sipped his coffee in a relaxed manner and looked like a man who enjoyed every shock someone else experienced. The department head quickly brought the conversation back to work before the crazy guest came up with a new provocation. The smile disappeared from Jerry's face when the real reason for his visit to Korea came up. The man admitted that he was tasked with supporting a covert operation related to a dangerous investigation. The mission data flashed on the holographic screen, and Jerry irritably recalled the leadership of the British branch. Dogon confirmed the information about the missing informant, showing that he had the situation under control for a long time. Dogon uncovered details of an old case involving a pharmaceutical company that conducted dangerous experiments on humans. Among its employees were two D-class espers who had been extracting classified information for years and leaking it to the outside world. The team waited for their signal, but the operation was cut short after a powerful explosion rocked the entire investigation. One of the agents died on the spot, and the second disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only new questions and anxiety. Following the tragedy, large-scale inspections of clinics began, but no traces of criminal activity were found. Dogon looked away thoughtfully, analyzing every detail, while suspicions about an information leak became more and more serious. Dogon studied the glowing photograph while Jerry talked about the missing guide's last message and his strange discovery. Leaning toward the screen, Dogon deciphered the erased symbols and linked the mysterious mark to the main office in Seoul. D-O's headquarters. Dogon narrowed his eyes and clarified the details of the plan, while the seriousness of the upcoming operation became increasingly clear. Jerry lazily propped his cheek on his hand and said that the researcher sent to headquarters had disappeared without a trace. Dogon frowned at the glowing screen, linking the employee's disappearance with the dangerous secret surrounding the headquarters. Jerry sat relaxed on the couch and announced that he would infiltrate the headquarters under the identity of the missing person. After listening to the plan, Dogon calmly inquired about his role in this risky mission. Jerry asked for access to D-O's apartment and a safe haven, hidden from prying eyes and pursuers. Dogon touched his chin thoughtfully, considering the request and the possible consequences for the entire operation. Smiling brightly, Jerry asked to be addressed simply by his first name, adding a touch of lightness and warmth to the conversation. Dogon, with his arms crossed, briefly agreed, and a pleased Jerry could barely contain his joyful delight. An inspired Jerry raised his finger and asked with interest what to call the head of the department now. Dogon sat among the green bamboo with impeccable posture and suggested abandoning the usual address. For a moment there was silence between them, filled with anticipation and hidden curiosity. Jerry tiredly covered his face with his hand, realizing that Dogon's seriousness was almost impossible to penetrate. Han Li-hyun emerged from the flash of light, shielding his eyes with his hand as rocks swirled around him and space itself trembled. The two employees watched the battlefield in amazement, unable to believe their eyes after Han Li-hyun's incredible display of strength. Amidst the shattered rubble, Han Li-hyun calmly walked forward, leaving behind a dozen destroyed robots and shocked witnesses. Baek-yeol's eyes widened and she raised her hands in confusion, trying to understand how the fight had ended in just a few seconds. The fair-haired analyst noted with a smile that Han Li-hyun had become faster and controlled his power much more accurately. Amidst the shattered targets and clouds of dust, the staff discussed his height, marveling at the impeccable accuracy of each strike. Kimura happily grabbed her colleague's hands, and her sincere gratitude instantly diffused the situation. With a wide smile, Kimura easily laughed it off, leaving the bewildered employee completely confused. Han Li-hyun quietly approached from behind, and his sudden appearance made Kimura flinch in surprise. An enthusiastic Kimura showered Han Li-hyun with praise, admiring his impressive results after training. Even the analyst who was watching from the sidelines became interested in the fighter's success and mentally tried to replicate this achievement for himself. Han Li-hyun modestly acknowledged his outstanding performance, remaining calm amidst the general admiration. Kimura's eyes lit up as she called him one of the strongest espers in his class. Under the surprised gazes of those around him, Han Li-hyun suddenly leaned down right in front of the confused girl. Kimura became even more embarrassed, deciding that the fighter was persistently asking for well-deserved praise for his successes. Laughing, the girl ruffled Han Li-hyun's silver hair, and the atmosphere instantly filled with warmth and joy. Kimura quickly pulled her hand away and looked embarrassed, while Han Li-hyun calmly explained his strange actions as support. Hearing the explanation, the girl waved her hands in confusion, but Han Li-hyun suddenly asked her not to stop. Among the delicate floral patterns, Kimura carefully took his palms, trying to help him even more confidently. Han Li-hyun offered to continue the support through touching with a serious expression, focusing entirely on the girl. Surrounded by shining petals, they stood very close, holding hands tightly in the midst of general amazement. Kimura animatedly asked if he needed help right now and received immediate consent. The fair-haired analyst watched the proceedings with a smile, amazed at how quickly they had become close. While preparing for the test, the appearance of a new person made Kimura turn around in surprise. The girl with short green hair looked closely at Kimura, assessing her young age. Upon learning that the schoolgirl had already become a candidate for S-class, the stranger could not hide her sincere admiration. Han Li-hyun calmly admitted that he had gained his powers at the age of 8, surprising everyone around him. The fair-haired employee frowned thoughtfully, trying to understand the reason for Han Li-hyun's strange displeasure. Kimura chatted cheerfully with the fighter, and the light atmosphere gradually replaced the recent tension. Hearing the new name, the girl turned around sharply, and her curiosity instantly flared up with renewed vigor. A stunning blonde appeared among the bright flowers, confidently striding forward and attracting all eyes. Sojia stepped forward confidently and sharply criticized the former guide, Han Li-hyun, calling him a dangerous mistake. With her arms crossed at her waist, Sojia stated that abandoning the guide too late had turned the fighter into an unstable threat. Kimura flushed with indignation and hastened to defend her mentor, not allowing the truth to be distorted. The blonde just grinned and confidently predicted Yu Yijin's rapid rise to the level of the strongest espers. After training, Sojia tried to take the girl with her, hoping to continue the conversation in private. Han Li-hyun gently held Kimura close and immediately walked away, completely ignoring Sojia's displeasure. In the testing arena, a huge robot loomed over the fragile figure of a girl, causing alarm among observers. Sojia flushed with irritation while Kimura calmly reminded them that the class in front of them was already S-class. The girl with short green hair waved her hand, and hundreds of shining drops turned into deadly bullets. As the water projectiles cut through the air, Kimura tiredly waved off the endless explanations from the others. Sojia screamed and demanded that they open fire immediately, tensely watching every movement. Blue flashes pierced the car's body one after another, covering the arena with a rain of sparks and debris. Sojia clenched her fists in joy and was already celebrating her victory, attributing her success to her support and advice. Han Li-hyun suddenly raised his head, realizing the danger before anyone else, and breaking the general jubilation. Amidst the smoke, the robot rose to its paws again, and its scarlet eyes glowed even brighter than before. The girl in the black suit was breathing heavily after the attack, realizing that the test was just beginning. In the huge arena, Yu Yijin confidently prepared to continue the fight, showing no fear. Sojia threw a sharp jibe at Han Li-hyun, trying to hide her irritation behind a confident smile. Her smug chuckle quickly disappeared when an alarm sounded, causing the girl to suddenly become wary. Hearing the warning, Sojia turned pale and quickly turned back to the arena with growing concern. Blue energy swirled across the arena as Yu Yijin gathered her last strength to continue the test. Drops of water trembled around the girl, and the tension on her face showed the price of this powerful technique. The huge robot moved forward again, and the test continued in even more dangerous conditions. Observers looked at each other with alarm, realizing that S-class status did not guarantee real power. The girl watched the arena closely as anxious thoughts about Yu Yi-jin's safety grew stronger. Sojia touched her chin nervously, no longer hiding her doubts about her charge's success. The girl stepped forward and asked permission to help the girl, worrying about her condition. There was tension between the two mentors, and their looks spoke louder than words. Sojia stubbornly declared that her support was enough, refusing to acknowledge the problem. Baek Yo-yul pointed to the arriving medics, reminding them that the situation looked much more serious. Hearing this, Sojia turned away abruptly, trying to maintain the remnants of her confidence in front of those around her. Her irritation got the better of her, and she rudely reminded him of the difference between ranks, offending Kim Yura. Baek Yul flushed with indignation and loudly demanded that they simply look at what was happening without prejudice. As Sojia walked away down the corridor, Kim Yura merely watched her go and held back her harsh words. Kim Yura watched Sojia leave and quietly told Baek Yul that the teacher seemed unusually irritated and sensitive today. Han Li-hyun suddenly apologized, thinking that Sojia's irritation was due to his long-standing refusal to become her partner. Kim Yura and Baek Yul looked at each other with genuine bewilderment, not understanding why he blamed himself. An embarrassed Han Li-hyun admitted that Sojia might have harbored a grudge after his decision, and it was now reflected in her behavior. Baek Yul calmly explained that the reason was much deeper and was primarily related to severe fatigue. Kim Yura thought about his words, remembering her mentor's tense state during the test. Memories of the days when Sojia led the strongest fighters and dealt with any crisis without hesitation came flooding back. Among the elite espers, she always stood out for her confidence, pride, and impeccable reputation as an experienced mentor. Baek Yo-yul revealed that after Han Li-hyun's rejection, Sojia took on even more work in an attempt to maintain her position. Han Li-hyun calmly admitted that he had listened carefully to his younger sister's advice and decided to follow her words. Kim Yura looked up in surprise, trying to figure out if she and Sojia were really almost the same age. As they walked down the shining corridor, Baek Yul easily explained that the difference between the sisters was very small. Han Li-hyun confidently stated that he had never treated others as caringly as he did Kim Yura. Baek Yul frowned and pointed out the main problem hidden behind the dangerous man's excessive concern. Amidst the blue flowers and soft light, Han Li-hyun admitted that Kim Yura is truly special to him. Kim Yura froze among the bright orange petals, embarrassed by such frankness on the part of Han Li-hyun. With a smile, Baek Yul hinted to the girl that Han Li-hyun's attitude had long been different from usual. Kim Yura softly admitted that she also singled him out from the others and treated him completely differently. Baek Yul nodded in understanding, his thoughts increasingly pushing him towards the obvious conclusion about these two. Han Li-hyun remained silent under the cold blue light as Baek Yul wondered how long they would deny it. Kim Yura's eyes widened in shock as the conversation suddenly took a strange turn. Han Li-hyun suddenly became indignant, and his usual calmness cracked for a moment. Jerry smiled happily among the scattering of hearts, clearly enjoying the dangerous man's reaction. Kim Yura touched her cheek in confusion, not understanding why everyone suddenly decided to spend time together. Dogon calmly relayed the details of the plan, and almost a year of mission awaited them under the same roof. In the spacious living room, Han Li-hyun instantly rejected the idea, causing a wave of discontent around him. Dogon coldly cut off any objections and made it clear that it was no longer possible to refuse the task. Before the trip, he asked one of his companions to take the seat next to him in the car. Jerry theatrically complained about the strangers around him, but immediately tried to move closer to yell. Within a minute, Jerry and Han Li-hyun were sitting shoulder to shoulder, turning the trip into a real ordeal. Baek Yul tiredly covered her forehead with her hand, watching this absurd struggle of characters and stubbornness. The car pulled away smoothly, and a long road and even more chaos awaited the company ahead. In the cold light of the street, Kim Sanaju turned at the familiar voice and saw Ha Yunmi approaching him first. "Huh!" Yunmi smiled softly and carefully asked about the reason for the meeting, trying to hide the awkwardness of her previous refusal. With a slight blush, the girl recalled the moment when she refused to help him and looked away in embarrassment. Kim Sanaju just smiled good-naturedly, showing that he had long since let this story go without resentment or regret. Under the blue lights of the alley, Ha Yunmi hastened to assure him that everything was fine now. The girl admitted that she would soon be leaving for a long time, and before that she wanted to get rid of the heavy burden on her heart. Kim Sanaju froze in confusion in the middle of the conversation, but still agreed to listen to her until the end. The peaceful conversation was interrupted by people's screams when a powerful explosion shook the street and panic gripped everyone. Bright headlines flashed across the screens, and Kim Sanaju's name once again found itself at the center of a major scandal. The angry crowd demanded an apology, blaming the association for the endless breakdowns of dangerous men. The wave of discontent grew stronger, and protesters were already demanding the complete dissolution of the organization. Do-yoona, with a mysterious smile, suggested that they stay longer, enjoying the beautiful view and calm atmosphere. Dogon stood with his arms crossed and coldly suggested that they limit themselves to tea, not giving in to her mood. A satisfied smile appeared on Do-yoona's lips, as if she was only amused by the serious man's restraint. In the spacious office, Dogon coldly interrupted the meeting, and Do-yoona mockingly assessed his hasty departure. The woman in the burgundy suit gently jabbed her interlocutor, hinting at the poor performance of the association's employees. Dogon, with his arms crossed, calmly parried the attack, emphasizing the responsibility of the people in their places. A tense politeness hung between them, and slight smiles hid the struggle for influence. Outside the window, a crowd was noisy, and Dogon reminded how quickly society can turn its back on the authorities. Against the scarlet background, Do-yoona looked dangerously confident, urging him not to trust beautiful promises. The woman's predatory smile widened as she called fidelity a convenient illusion for naive people. Do-yoona persistently returned to her proposal, not hiding her interest in Dogon's answer. The man's icy gaze remained unchanged, as he had already ended this conversation many times. Red shadows surrounded Do-yoona, and her ambitions sounded even louder among the hidden threats. Dogon briefly drew a line, showing that he no longer intended to continue the argument. Do-yoona's heels hit the floor with a loud thud as she turned around with a mysterious and dangerous smile. Finally, the woman called Dogon her son, leaving behind a heavy and strange aftertaste. Silence reigned in the office again, and Dogon watched President Do-yoona leave. In the cozy room, Baek-yeol lazily sat on the sofa and reminded Han Lee-hyun about tomorrow's work. Jerry leaned forward animatedly and declared that there was an important debate that needed to be held today before that. Han Lee-hyun calmly turned his head towards his interlocutor, trying to understand the reason for such sudden enthusiasm. The bright living room filled with the sound of an argument as Jerry demanded privacy and a separate room. Han Lee-hyun stubbornly declared that he would stay by Jerry's side, and the room immediately smelled of a future quarrel. Jerry flushed with indignation and reminded them that the prohibitions did not apply to him even in someone else's house. The two dangerous men were ready to argue until the morning, but Baek-yeol abruptly stopped this chaos. With a warm smile, Baek-yeol explained that it was best to leave the guest room free for other people. Jerry immediately turned the argument into a joke and hopefully tried to become the girl's close friend. The pink petals and glow around him only fueled his excitement as Baek-yeol joined in the game. Jerry happily made plans for friendship, and Han Lee-hyun's face grew darker with each passing second. The tall man couldn't stand it and said outright that he didn't want Jerry to be his friend at all. Against the backdrop of delicate flowers, Han Lee-hyun suddenly proposed a friendship between him and Baek-yeol alone. Han Lee-hyun was taken aback by this turn of events, while Baek-yeol mentally struggled with her charm. Jerry immediately intervened, not intending to sit back and watch the pair grow closer. Having settled himself in the chair, he importantly declared himself the elder and demanded more respectful treatment. A fun argument turned into a name game, where Jerry was already coming up with new nicknames for everyone. One name stuck in Han Lee-hyun's head so much that the man momentarily dropped out of the conversation. Baek-yeol kindly offered a simpler way to address the situation, trying to lighten the mood. Jerry's mischievous smile lit up the room as he called himself dear to Baek-yeol. Han Lee-hyun stood up from his seat and came closer, no longer hiding his tension. Among the pink flowers, the man quietly said the name Baek-yeol, making the girl even more embarrassed. Yeol's cheeks flushed red and her heart beat faster at Han Lee-hyun's unexpected gentleness. The girl tried to find the words in confusion, and the blush on her cheeks revealed her confusion much earlier. Han Lee-hyun froze with a slight blush as his thoughts swirled around Baek. Yeol was getting more and more insistent and stronger. Jerry was watching what was happening with shining eyes, clearly enjoying every second of this awkward scene. Yeol's cheeks flushed a soft blush as Han Lee-hyun's name escaped her lips amidst her warm thoughts. Han Lee-hyun was drowning in embarrassment, and the pink flowers around him only emphasized his happy and confused smile. Already leaving, Baek-yeol turned around at the stairs and quietly called out to Han Lee-hyun, not wanting to end the evening so quickly. Han Lee-hyun stood in the middle of the room, confused, when Baek-yeol focused her attention on him again. Amidst the golden flowers and soft light, Han Lee-hyun smiled broadly and wished Baek-yeol sweet dreams. and another invisible thread appeared between them. Baek Yul saw off Hana Lee-hyun with a warm smile, and the golden flowers around them made the farewell especially cozy. Next to the beaming Hana Lee-hyun, watching what was happening with noticeable interest, Jerry gently wished Baek Yul sweet dreams, his green eyes sparkling with mischievous warmth. Baek Yul waved goodbye in a friendly manner, maintaining a light and calm mood. Jerry suddenly closed the distance and hugged Baek Yul around the waist, demanding an overly bold reward in the form of a goodnight kiss. Baek Yul flushed with indignation, and the pleased Jerry only enjoyed her reaction even more. Hana Lee-hyun immediately intervened and pulled Jerry back, preventing him from crossing the dangerous line. Jerry demanded an explanation in irritation as the tension between the men quickly escalated. Half-naked Hana Lee-hyun looked completely calm, and his confidence only infuriated Jerry even more. Seeing the hard bed on the floor, Hana Lee-hyun openly expressed dissatisfaction with this treatment. Having failed to achieve what he wanted, Hana Lee-hyun decided to take the sofa, hoping to find a more comfortable place. Jerry categorically forbade him to stay in the house and said that he would watch his every move. Jerry blushed at the unexpected realization and almost choked on his own thoughts about obsession. Jerry smugly listed his virtues, confident that no one could resist his charm. Jerry lounged around with an air of importance, playing the dangerous heartthrob, while Han Lee-hyun was losing his patience. Without waiting for an answer, Jerry turned to Han Lee-hyun almost affectionately, checking to see if he was listening. The silence in the room told Jerry that Han Lee-hyun had long ago chosen sleep over the strange conversation. Curiosity got the better of him, and Jerry carefully approached the bed, looking at the sleeping Han Lee-hyun. Leaning very close, Jerry began to speculate about the bandage and Han Lee-hyun's hidden secrets. The longer Jerry looked at him, the bolder his thoughts became and the more absurd his assumptions. Lee-hyun's sudden movement caused Jerry to jump back, losing all his confidence. Jerry quickly found a new reason to worry and began to talk about wet hair. Baek Yul was mentioned. Han Lee-hyun immediately stood up and went to tidy himself up. Watching his haste, Jerry just shook his head, amazed at the obviousness of what was happening. Late that night, the men lay in separate beds and Jerry still hadn't dropped the subject. Hearing the name Baek Yul, Han Lee-hyun tensed up and pretended not to understand the hint at all. Jerry, with a satisfied smile, called Baek Yul Han Lee-hyun's devoted companion, adding fuel to the fire. Han Lee-hyun tiredly covered his eyes with his hand, realizing that this conversation would not end anytime soon. Lying in the semi-darkness of the room, Jerry confidently talked about how dangerous men become dependent on one girl. Han Lee-hyun gritted his teeth under the blanket and threatened to throw Jerry out the door if he didn't shut up. After these words, Han Lee-hyun covered his face with his hand, and heavy thoughts returned to Baek Yul again. From the depths of his memory emerged a warm image of a little girl calling him through the light. Against the backdrop of a bright glow, a grown-up Jerry appeared, attracting attention with his confident smile and model-like appearance. Baek Yul sincerely admired his new look, and Jerry instantly blossomed from the praise. Under the sun's rays and green petals, Jerry showered Baek Yul with sweet compliments. Baek Yul looked up at Jerry, and her surprise only fueled his interest. Amidst the green lawns and stone paths, Jerry announced that he was leaving the house for a while, leaving Baek Yul at a loss. Jerry confidently asked Baek Yul not to miss him, but Han Lee-hyun immediately destroyed his smug mood. Jerry's cheeks flushed with embarrassment as Han Lee-hyun pushed him out of the gate with increasing insistence. The tension between the men grew thicker, and Han Lee-hyun, irritated, could barely contain his emotions. Jerry put his arm around Han Lee-hyun's shoulder and declared them best friends right in front of Baek Yul. Baek Yul was genuinely happy about their closeness, and Jerry immediately took advantage of this moment. With a satisfied smile, Jerry began to hint at being too close to Han Lee-hyun, causing him to flush with indignation. The spacious hall was filled with discussions about the latest disaster, and the news of the Esper's escape made everyone tense. The serious faces at the table betrayed alarm as dangerous incidents among the Espers were occurring more and more frequently. Sonaju appeared on the glowing screen, and details of the old explosion raised new suspicions. Hearing the name of the missing Esper, the man turned pale and froze in place, not believing what he heard. The man sagged in his chair under the pressure of the questions. The past was drawing him ever more tightly into a dangerous investigation. Hearing the chief's name, the witness suddenly jumped up from the table, and alarm instantly appeared on his face. The cold officer with piercing eyes remained calm, carefully studying every reaction of his interlocutor. The screen flashed with images of a destroyed building where one person disappeared after the dangerous man's breakdown. New details made the air thicker as the second participant in that night disappeared without a trace after the explosion. The man hastily denied the suspicions, his voice trembling more and more under the pressure of the investigation. The officer paused and continued the interrogation, not allowing his interlocutor to avoid uncomfortable questions. The icy gaze grew even harsher when the conversation returned to Kim Sanaju's disappearance. The pale witness desperately tried to justify himself, but fear and confusion betrayed him more than any words. After a lengthy interrogation, the officer admitted the witness's words were true, but the mystery of the disappearance only became darker. Amid the gray ash and ruins, details emerged about a missing girl who vanished without a trace after the explosion. The pale man grabbed his face and desperately denied the accusations, not understanding the reasons for the suspicions. Dogon listened attentively to the man's confused explanations and calmly assured him that the suspicions had been removed. Dogon raised his hand and demanded that he remember every detail of that day without missing a single detail. Dogon's blue eyes flashed brightly against the digital light, and the interrogation entered a new phase. After Dogon's words, the man froze, gathering strength for the difficult memories of that fateful meeting. Amidst the dark memories, a beautiful girl emerged who trustingly allowed him to do everything for the sake of compensation. The stranger's closeness and attention made the man even more embarrassed, and his heart treacherously accelerated its rhythm. Dogon calmly checked his story against the police report, carefully watching every reaction. The man reluctantly confirmed the details of his statement, becoming increasingly immersed in awkward memories. Dogon clasped his fingers in front of him and came to the conclusion that there was an important reason behind the girl's actions. The man plunged into memories, where the mysterious girl increasingly insistently closed the distance between them. In the warm light of the room, the stranger touched his face, and the sharp smell made him wary. The man, shyly fiddling with his fingers, tried to explain to Dogon the strange feeling of anxiety from her scent. Dogon's cold gaze became sharper when it became clear that the witness could distinguish emotions by smell. The man hesitantly confirmed the rare ability, realizing that he had hidden an important detail of his gift. The spacious office fell silent as Dogon studied the new information and connected it with the girl's disappearance. With his head down, the witness admitted that this skill requires dangerously close contact with a person. Dogon crossed his arms and sternly warned the man that hiding such abilities was unacceptable. The embarrassed witness hastened to promise to improve, trying not to anger the dangerous boss. Purple memories filled the room again as the conversation returned to the mysterious meeting. The stranger extended her hand with a kind smile, but her scent screamed of threat and hidden danger. The frightened man quickly left the room, escaping from the anxiety that was rapidly growing. He later admitted that his emotions had completely thrown him off balance and deprived him of common sense. The story about the calm girl only further confused the matter because her behavior did not match the smell. In the old photograph, the missing girl smiled serenely, while the question of her fate grew increasingly bleak. Dogon turned around at his colleague's call, and the fatigue from the difficult investigation was still reflected on his face. The blonde employee anxiously suggested taking a break, noticing how much energy the day had taken. Dogon calmly refused to rest, continuing to think about the matter that was haunting him. Walking down the bright corridor, Dogon explained that his intuition told him to be especially careful now. For a moment, Dogon was silent, collecting together all the oddities that had emerged during the investigation. Around the corner of the corridor, Pek Yil peered out cautiously from her hiding place, trying to find out new details. Hearing footsteps, the girl hurried to hide, but curiosity again prevailed over caution. The blonde employee turned around sharply and instantly caught a suspicious movement near the door. To the sound of loud footsteps, Dogon came closer and suddenly came face to face with Pek Yil. They looked at each other in silence for a few seconds, as the awkwardness quickly grew. Blushing, Pek Yil quickly tried to justify herself, hiding her embarrassment behind an awkward smile. Pressed against the wall, Pek Yil hurriedly made excuses to Dogon, trying to hide her curiosity. The embarrassed girl haltingly explained that she had accidentally heard the noise and simply stopped to check what was happening. Already getting ready to leave, Pek Yil breathed a sigh of relief, but Dogon's stern voice made her freeze. Dogon's cold gaze became more attentive when the conversation suddenly turned to the quarrel between the dangerous colleagues. Pek Yul smiled nervously and agreed to tell everything, realizing that it was too late to back out. Under the soft pink light, the girl looked closely at Dogon and saw signs of extreme fatigue. Wanting to help, Pek Yul carefully extended her hand, intending to support him with her gift. But as soon as the fingers came close, the girl froze in shock, not believing what had happened. In the empty corridor, a little boy stood confusedly next to his mother, worried about his sick father. The woman led her son to the door with a cold smile and prepared to show him the harsh truth. Hearing the click of the lock, the boy froze, his bright eyes widening with alarm and fear. Under the mother's dark words, the father turned not into a victim, but into a dangerous man dependent on support. Outside the door, Su-min saw a half-naked man next to a girl and could not hide his shock. A purple rage flared up around Su-min as disgust at what he saw washed over him. Baek-yeol confidently kept her distance in the empty corridor, showing Han that she didn't need anyone else's support. Cold Dogon sternly warned Baek-yeol to avoid touching while the dangerous Esper's control remained unstable. Upon hearing about physical contact, Baek-yeol froze, and the tense atmosphere immediately became heavier. Baek-yeol honestly admitted that she had already tried to help Dogon, and by doing so she had only added to her own problems. Baek-yeol's grandmother's words came back to her mind, and the golden flowers softened even the most poignant memories. Under the bright flashes of Grandma Peck's instructions, Yeol received a boost of stubbornness and determination to act in her own way. The red background flared with rage as Baek-yeol decided to no longer tolerate the dangerous man's cold attitude. With his head bowed, Baek-yeol apologized to Dogon in an exaggerated manner, hiding her irritation behind a polite smile. Turning on his heels, Baek-yeol promised to disappear from his life, and her hairtail flew up behind her back. Dogon was left alone among the cold shades of the corridor and watched Baek-yeol with a long, thoughtful gaze. 10 minutes later, Dogon was sitting at his desk when Baek-yeol entered the office with a determined, serious expression. Among the tall bookshelves, Baek-yeol stopped at the entrance, demanding to immediately move on to the conversation without unnecessary pauses. Baek-yeol held her chin up confidently, showing that she was ready to hear out any complaints to the end. Dogon appeared next to her so quickly that Baek-yeol almost flinched from his sudden approach. Under a purple backdrop of embarrassment, Baek-yeol tried to lighten the mood with an awkward joke about his speed. Dogon stepped closer between the shelves and coldly reminded Baek-yeol of her boss's words. The tension flared as Dogon loomed over Baek-yeol, leaving her no escape. Against the dark background, his blue eyes became even colder, and his distrust of Baek-yeol's words only increased. Pinned to the bookshelves by Baek-yeol, nervously searched for a way out as Dogon dangerously closed the distance between them. Baek-yeol quickly pulled herself together and decided to take the conversation in an unexpected direction. Cold Dogon listened attentively to the question about Han Li-hyun, not hiding his growing interest. Among the tall shelves, Baek-yeol folded her arms thoughtfully, carefully choosing the right words. Yeol's head and a mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. With a smile, Baek-yeol reminded Dogon of his high status and special position among the guides. Against the bright backdrop of her fantasies, Baek-yeol tried to flatter Dogon, hoping to soften his mood. A blue glow surrounded Dogon as he calmly announced his appointment as Baek-yeol's handler. Baek-yeol froze in shock, not expecting that control over her work would fall into his hands. Ignoring the protests, Dogon confidently walked forward, inviting them to discuss the details. At the bright table, Baek-yeol spoke about her frequent meetings with Han Li-hyun and the investigation into the disappearances. Dogon confirmed that the risk around Han Li-hyun was minimal, which calmed Baek-yeol down a bit. The surveillance agents who had accompanied Baek-yeol after leaving Han appeared against the gray background. An indignant Baek-yeol called it surveillance, but Dogon calmly referred to the terms of the contract. With a calm gesture, Dogon explained that the investigation had to be postponed due to new dangerous developments. Baek-yeol frowned even more, trying to understand the reason for his unexpected initiative. Dogon looked straight at Baek-yeol and declared that her rare abilities were too valuable for the center. Baek-yeol shuddered at Dogon's unexpected statement, and the most disturbing thoughts already flashed in her head. At the bright table, Dogon calmly promised to take responsibility for Baek-yeol, which confused her even more. Under the blue lines of the interface, Dogon announced new rules, turning care into strict control. Electric flashes surrounded Dogon as he demanded to know Baek-yeol's every move and whereabouts. Baek-yeol was instantly outraged, seeing his special treatment as a threat to her freedom and personal boundaries. A slight smile flickered across Dogon's lips, and this unexpectedly threw Baek-yeol off balance. The warm light softened the atmosphere as Dogon acknowledged his own mistake and emotional exhaustion. Baek-yeol reluctantly accepted the apology, although suspicion still remained in her thoughts. On the purple background, Dogon promised to personally supervise Baek-yeol, increasing her anxiety even more. Baek Yul clutched her head, realizing that the situation had only become more complicated after the apology. Yul quickly left the office, trying to clear her head after the conversation. In the long corridor, Baek Yul thought irritably about the endless reports and the new controls. A sharp shout made Baek Yul stop, and surprise instantly replaced her previous thoughts. So Jia appeared in the hallway with a displeased look, attracting the attention of the surrounding employees. Seo Jia's voice became harsher as she reminded Baek Ye-yul of the accident and their old problems. Baek Ye-yul froze under the pressure of the accusations. Not understanding the reason for such a bright outburst of anger, Seo Jia's irritation reached its limit, and her words sounded like an open challenge to Baek Yul. Baek Ye-yul rolled her eyes tiredly as Seo-jia continued making noise in the middle of the center's empty hallway. So Jia responded defiantly, her whole demeanor showing her readiness to continue this pointless argument. Yul's lips, as what was happening was already starting to openly amuse her. Baek Yul recalled a loud scandal that even employees at the other end of the building could hear. So Jia was confused for only a moment, but quickly found a new reason for another barb. So Jia's arrogant tone emphasized the difference in status, and the irritation became more and more noticeable. Baek Yul flared up with anger and decided not to tolerate her rival's constant attacks any longer. Amidst the scarlet flashes, Baek Yul openly proposed to end the senseless rivalry between them. Baek Ye-yul reminded everyone of her partner's support, hinting that So-ya should also think about herself. Tension flared between the girls, and mutual jabs quickly escalated into an open squabble. The noise in the hallway attracted the attention of the staff, and So-jia again became the center of general discontent. Seo-jia turned around abruptly and left, throwing out another offensive phrase about Baek Yul as a parting shot. Baek Yul looked at her rival with a heavy gaze, considering her words to be beyond all possible limits. Thoughts about So-jia's family haunted Baek Ye-yul, making her wonder about the reasons for her anger. Yu Yi-jin appeared from the dark doorway, and the atmosphere around instantly became much heavier. Baek Yul tried to greet Yi-jin, but was met with only cold and silent indifference. Yu Yi-jin disappeared behind the door, leaving Baek Ye-yul with a feeling of awkwardness and incompleteness. Baek Yul watched her for a long time, trying to understand the girl's strange behavior. Yi-jin's cheek and Baek Ye-yul realized that she had been crying. At the gym, Han Li-hyun patiently watched over Baek Ye-yul, correcting every move during the tough workout. Baek Yul pressed the barbell and exercise machines, pushing herself to the point of complete exhaustion. Han Li-hyun urged her on faster and faster, and the girl could barely stand on her feet from fatigue. After a while, Baek Yul collapsed onto the bench, feeling completely exhausted from the exertion. Breathing heavily, Baek Yul showed the result of her suffering and tried to catch her breath. Han Li-hyun held out a bottle of water with a bright smile, carefully reminding him to replenish his strength. Baek Yul greedily took a few sips while Han Li-hyun watched her with a satisfied expression. Baek plucked up his courage. Yul turned the conversation to Han Li-hyun and the events of the past. Han Li-hyun responded calmly, and the girl immediately began asking him about important matters. Even the coach turned around in surprise when Baek Yul persistently continued her questioning. Han Li-hyun angrily stated that he didn't want to share Baek Ye-yul's attention with other people. After a short pause, Baek Yul asked about the Esper Yu Yi-jin and that fateful day. Han Li-hyun confirmed that he was the first to arrive at the scene of the mysterious incident. Baek Yul leaned forward, trying to get details about what happened that day. Han Li-hyun thought for a moment, remembering the chaos, the opening of the gates, and the beginning of the dangerous battle. Han Li-hyun confidently declared victory in a blaze of blue energy as the fighters around him caught their breath. Against the backdrop of a bright sky, the last monsters were destroyed, and the team greeted the news with relief. One of the participants reported the completion of the operation and preparations for the destruction of the dangerous core. Han Li-hyun was about to leave when he felt an unsettling energy disturbing the peace. Without wasting any time, Han Li-hyun soared above the ruined buildings and headed towards the source of the threat. A giant water vortex grew in front of him, and inside it was the Esper Yu Yi-jin. Among the seething streams were hidden not only monsters, but also people who found themselves in a deadly trap. Yu Yi-jin covered her face with her hands as the water raged around her, reflecting her despair and loss of control. Baek Ye-yul sighed heavily when she learned that Yu Yi-jin's parents were also among those involved in the tragedy. Han Li-hyun confirmed that Yu Yi-jin had left with them, leaving behind only questions. Yul's face as the story became darker and more complex. Han Li-hyun explained that even powerful Esper's abilities can easily go out of control at critical moments. Baek-yeol remembered Sojia's words and began to look at what was happening around Yu Yi-jin differently. Jia became Yu Yi-jin's partner, appeared before her eyes. Baek-yeol was puzzled why the loyal guide treated Yu Yi-jin so coldly and harshly. Embarrassedly making excuses, Baek-yeol admitted that she accidentally overheard part of their recent argument. Han Li-hyun suggested that Yu Yi-jin's training was difficult due to a lack of necessary support. The image of Yu Yi-jin and Seo-jia came up again in the conversation, increasing Baek-yeol's suspicions. Sitting on the bench, Baek-yeol became increasingly convinced that the cause of the conflict was much deeper. Han Li-hyun calmly revealed the main problem. Yu Yi-jin simply lacks the skills of a real guide. These words made Baek-yeol freeze because the situation turned out to be much more serious than she thought. Han Li-hyun explained that Yu Yi-jin hides her insecurities by blaming others for her problems. Baek-yeol frowned, beginning to understand the reasons for her loyal guide's abrupt behavior. Han Li-hyun noted that other espers never complained about support like Yu Yi-jin. Before Baek-yeol's eyes, a team of espers appeared, calmly working with their guides. Seo-jia continued to boast about her connection with the strongest esper, trying to maintain her authority. Han Li-hyun concluded that Seo-jia's abilities were insufficient for an esper of that level. Even his own support was inferior to the normal item that helped Yu Yi-jin better. Baek-yeol smiled and teased Han Li-hyun, reminding him of his special treatment of her. The break ended too quickly, and Baek-yeol jumped up from the bench in confusion. Han Li-hyun happily announced 2 additional approaches, completely depriving the girl of hope. Baek-yeol resignedly accepted the harsh reality and continued training through sheer force of will. In the evening, they said goodbye near the car, and the sunset painted the street with warm golden hues. On the way home, Baek-yeol complained of being tired, and Han Li-hyun was already thinking about dinner. The girl was surprised by his thoughtfulness, noticing her companion's unusually good mood. Han Li-hyun looked around carefully, as if he was looking for someone among the passers-by. Baek-yeol quietly admitted that she was being followed, but heard Han Li-hyun's calm response. Han Li-hyun said that he had identified 2 pursuers long ago and had already eliminated the threat. Baek-yeol turned pale with shock, deciding that this was about something truly scary. Han Li-hyun remained unperturbed, but Baek-yeol began to doubt his words more and more. Baek-yeol flushed with alarm and demanded an explanation, not understanding why Han Li-hyun decided everything on his own. Having heard the clarification about the annoying pursuers, the girl froze in the middle of the road in confusion. Han Li-hyun coldly admitted that he had eliminated the threat, his scarlet eyes flashing with a dangerous gleam. Baek-yeol asked again in bewilderment, completely confused by the esper's strange explanations. Han Li-hyun spoke about the people who hate the strongest espers and admitted that he was the main target. Baek-yeol looked down and realized with alarm that she had suddenly become his weak spot. Han Li-hyun hinted that the culprits were almost found and the truth would soon come out. The girl jokingly recalled the head's words, trying to hide her growing concern about what was happening. Suddenly, Han Li-hyun noticed signs of a break-in near the house, instantly alerting Baek-yeol. Han Li-hyun's confident smile sounded calmer than any security guard. His smile calmed the girl down a little. They carefully climbed up to the apartment, where anxiety hovered in the golden light of the evening entrance. Baek-yeol watched every movement tensely, expecting trouble behind the door. Han Li-hyun suddenly thrust his hand forward, preparing to meet the possible threat first. The loud explosion caused Baek-yeol to instinctively cover herself with her hands and stumble back. The door swung open and a happy man burst inside with the look of a true winner. The door swung open to a shower of confetti, and Jerry greeted the guests as if he had returned after a long absence. Baek-yeol blinked in surprise, not expecting to see the culprit of the noise right in the middle of the apartment. Han Li-hyun tiredly ran his hand through his hair, anticipating a new wave of problems. Jerry spread his arms wide among the bright ribbons and joyfully announced his grand surprise. With a beaming smile, he admitted that he had organized the celebration himself and had even arrived before everyone else. Baek-yeol gently explained that they were also preparing for the meeting, so his zeal was unnecessary. Jerry instantly perked up and was already making plans for an even more raucous party in the future. The next moment, the pillow flew swiftly across the room, ruining the festive mood. Han Li-hyun pointed sternly at the scattered trash, turning the fun into a serious conversation. Jerry responded with a cheeky grin, causing Baek-yeol to sigh heavily in resignation. The girl silently watched the squabble, realizing that peace between these two was impossible. Baek-yeol set the table and offered food as the apartment gradually filled with the comfort of home. Jerry asked curiously about Han Lee-hyun's cooking, clearly expecting to hear another joke. Strange omelets appeared on the plates, and Baek-yeol acknowledged their frightening appearance with a smile. Jerry tasted the dish thoughtfully, and then his eyes lit up with genuine delight. The next second, the guy was already screaming with happiness, amazed by the unexpectedly delicious dinner. Han Lee-hyun immediately cut short his friend's enthusiasm, coldly reminding him of table manners. Jerry collapsed dramatically to the floor and made a noise, turning an ordinary dinner into a chaotic spectacle. Baek-yeol ate calmly, watching the quarrel and finding a strange familial warmth in it. A funny thought flashed through her mind that the constant squabbles only brought these two closer together. Jerry continued to complain from the kitchen, waving his arms among the mountains of unwashed dishes. Han Lee-hyun and Baek-yeol exchanged glances, equally tired of their friend's endless antics. The evening ended on the sofa, where the noisy company finally settled down together after the commotion. In the dark forest, the exhausted monster noticed an important clue and greedily grasped at the unexpected hope. The disfigured creature trembled with excitement, realizing that the solution was very close. Thoughts of returning to his master pushed him forward, while his body could barely stand on its feet. Despair broke into a furious cry, and blood spurted from the mouth among the thick purple haze. At that moment, a familiar voice rang out, causing the monster to suddenly freeze in fear. Jerry warned with a carefree smile that his friend was capable of causing a real disaster. The monster grinned nervously and trembled, unable to understand human words and intentions. Jerry said goodbye cheerfully, his green eyes flashing, and the tension around him only increased. Baek-yeol woke up on the sofa in surprise and looked around in confusion. Han Lee-hyun was sitting next to her, and she wondered if he had fallen asleep with her after a long day. Baek-yeol slowly opened her eyes after sleeping, trying to figure out how much time had passed. Jerry greeted her with juice and a big smile, enjoying a rare, quiet morning. The girl instantly accused the sly man of using his abilities, narrowing her eyes suspiciously. Jerry clutched his heart dramatically, feigning mortal hurt at the unfair accusations. It turned out they had simply fallen asleep during the movie, leaving Jerry bored and alone. Baek-yeol sheepishly apologized and offered to finish watching the movie, restoring the cozy atmosphere. Han Lee-hyun calmly glanced at his watch and warned that the night might end too late. Jerry readily agreed, pretending not to be upset at all by the cancellation of the entertainment. Baek-yeol admitted that she found the story sad, despite the film's family genre. Hearing about the amusement park, Jerry visibly tensed up, and his gaze darkened. He spoke quietly about his childhood without the warmth of a family, hiding the pain behind a calm voice. A heavy silence fell on the sofa, abruptly replacing the recent jokes and laughter. Baek-yeol turned off the film, deciding not to reopen the old wounds of her close friend. Jerry tried to smile, but the memories were still reflected in his green eyes. An awkward silence fell on the sofa as Han Lee-hyun stared gloomily ahead, and Baek-yeol searched for the right words. Jerry tried to defuse the situation by reminding them of a childhood excursion to that very park. Baek-yeol admitted that her memories of the place were spoiled by the gates that opened among the fun rides. After her words, the room fell into a heavy silence, and the conversation suddenly lost its former ease. Baek-yeol thoughtfully touched her hair, going over in her memory the events that had left a deep mark on her. Han Lee-hyun and Jerry waited silently for him to continue, not rushing to break the silence that had been established. Yeol's eyes, where a little girl walked happily between her parents. Then came the warm memory of my grandmother, the screams on the carousel, and the unbridled joy of childhood. Baek-yeol said that she visited the park not only with her family but also with friends, collecting happy memories. Smiling shyly, she admitted that she still loves amusement park rides and noisy walks. After the confession, there was a long, awkward pause between Han Lee-hyun, Jerry, and Baek-yeol. Peck mustered his courage. Yeol suggested that they go to the park together one day and take their minds off their problems. Han Lee-hyun was the first to react, and Jerry immediately supported the idea with unexpected enthusiasm. Jerry fell onto the bed with joy, spreading his arms and putting on another noisy performance. Lying down with a satisfied smile, he looked defiantly at Han Lee-hyun, waiting for his reaction. Han Lee-hyun stood up and coldly threatened Jerry, causing him to instantly fall silent. Instead of fear, Jerry only stretched his lips into a sly smile, pleased with the attention he received. Tension filled the bedroom as Jerry calmly watched the dangerous man across from him. Jerry admitted with a grin that he had deliberately provoked Han Lee-hyun to get this reaction. Han Li-hyun briefly confirmed his guess, maintaining his usual icy calm and control. Sprawled out on his bed, Jerry lazily thought about the mission where he encountered something more terrifying than ordinary monsters. A creepy humanoid appeared amidst the scarlet glow, and even the experienced S-Class was in no hurry to underestimate the threat. Han Li-hyun listened attentively to the story, realizing that Jerry rarely spoke seriously about work. A slight smile appeared on Jerry's lips, because risk and danger had long been a part of his life. Han Li-hyun's frown deepened, clearly displeased with how lightly he was treating deadly situations. Burying his face in the pillow, Jerry tried to avoid moralizing and turn the conversation into a joke. A second later, he was beaming a wide smile and showering Han Li-hyun with ridiculous compliments. Hearts and contented laughter filled the room as Jerry openly teased the dangerous man. The empty bottle rolled across the floor, and Seo-ji-ha lashed out in anger at the useless medicine and other people's advice. With a cold smile, she declared herself to be Yu Yi-jin's guide, turning his pain into her own chance to rise higher. Amidst the ruins and debris, Yu Yi-jin carefully led a tearful girl, broken by the loss of her parents. The girl trembled with tears and despair, clinging to her last hope in the midst of a destroyed world. Seo-ji-ha approached softly and confidently, offering help where others passed by. Tears continued to flow down her dirty cheeks as fear and loneliness gradually gave way to trust. Under the golden light, Seo-ji-ha hugged the girl tightly, cementing a bond that would change their destinies. Hiding a satisfied smile, Seo-ji-ha decided to seize this moment and get what she wanted at any cost. Seo Ju-hwan warily reminded Seo Ji-hae that she was already responsible for 3 people and had long been overloaded with work. Leaning back in his chair, he warned that trying to take on even more would end in serious problems. Seo Ji-ha flushed with irritation, because after Han Li-hyun left, her reputation was rapidly crumbling. Leaning her hands on the table, she vowed to prove to everyone that she was worthy of the status of the strongest guide. Seo Ji-ha fiercely hid the truth about Han Li-hyun, allowing others to believe in her merits. Seo Ju-hwan rubbed his forehead heavily, realizing how far this dangerous game of lies had gone. Clenching her fists, Seo Ji-ha reminded of her high compatibility with Yu Yi-jin and the successful cleansing. Seo Ju-hwan frowned even more, remembering that after awakening, Esper's abilities often changed. Even the confident Seo Ji-ha faltered when the conversation turned to a future full of uncertainty and risk. A blue glow surrounded her figure as she desperately begged for another chance to make things right. Tears glistened in Seo Ji-hae's eyes, and her voice trembled with fear of losing her last influence. After a long silence, Seo Ju-hwan finally agreed to help, understanding her desperation and determination. Powerful streams of water swirled over the pool, and Yu Yi-jin held back the elements, suppressing the trembling in her hands. The instructor loudly praised her concentration, while Seo Ji-ha watched the training with a satisfied smile. A warm golden glow of support enveloped Yu Yi-jin, helping her maintain control over the dangerous power. Seo Ji-ha frowned, realizing that even after making huge progress, basic skills were still difficult to master. Li-hyun flashed through her mind, and anxiety once again gripped Seo Ji-hae's heart with a painful chill. Yu Yi-jin timidly squeezed her hand, suggesting that she stop the torturous training and submit her application. Seo Ji-ha abruptly pulled away, not wanting to hear words that could destroy her last hopes. Yi-jin's cheeks flushed with embarrassment, and her apology sounded quiet and completely hesitant. The pent-up emotions burst out, and Seo Ji-ha unleashed all her fear and anger on the girl. Seo Ji-ha bitterly complained about the unfairness of fate, blaming Yu Yi-jin's awakened talent for her troubles. In a luxurious bar, Seo Ji-ha was idly swirling her glass when a mysterious man appeared next to her with a dangerous proposition. The stranger looked too confident, and Seo Ji-ha was already calculating what benefit she could get from the meeting. The man hinted at her famous name, and the air immediately began to smell of secrets, money, and hidden schemes. Under the soft golden light, Seo Ji-ha smiled, enjoying the attention and her special status. In the company of friends, she shamelessly ridiculed the stubborn S-classes, causing loud laughter at the table. In Seo Ji-hae's head, involving a new drug to support espers, the stranger revealed details of the secret research, causing Seo Ji-hoo to forget her light mood. Her eyes widened in surprise when the conversation turned to a drug more powerful and safer than Fimet. Hearing about a drug that wasn't on the market yet, Seo Ji-ha instantly lost her calm. The name of the scientific institute glittered on the business card, and the offer looked too tempting to refuse. The man promised to arrange a meeting and disappeared, leaving behind a suitcase with samples. The cold metal case lay on the table, reinforcing the sense of seriousness and risk of the entire transaction. So, Jiha personally tested the drug, deciding not to trust other people's words and beautiful promises. Yu Yi-jin drank the clear, tasteless, odorless liquid without suspecting anything. A few tense seconds stretched out into an eternity as the girl waited for at least some changes. So Jihee's face twisted in disappointment as the long-awaited drug failed to produce noticeable results. Seo Jiha flushed with rage and demanded answers, clenching her fists so hard that her fingers trembled. The stranger calmly explained, the drug only works on S-classes, and Yu Yi-jin is simply not suitable. Money no longer worried Seo Ji-hoo, as failure threatened to destroy her reputation and career. Under the dim light, she clutched her head, trying to find a way out of the rapidly growing disaster. Nuna and Han Li-hyun stood nearby, their satisfied faces only adding fuel to the fire. Then the man revealed his trump card. There was a solution that could solve this dangerous problem. So Jihee's purple eyes flashed with hope, and anxiety momentarily gave way to greedy interest. She leaned forward sharply, wanting to receive the life-saving medicine immediately and without waiting. The stranger smiled and demanded in return a favor on which much more depended than it seemed. So Jiha froze under her interlocutor's heavy gaze, realizing that the price of help would be high. Baek Yul increasingly sought out meetings with Yu Yi-jin, and her interest in the cold girl turned into a real obsession. By the sparkling water, Yu Yi-jin trained alone while Baek Ye-yul watched cautiously from behind the door, waiting for her chance. Yi-jin's sharp gaze met Baek Ye-yul's without warmth, causing her to nervously clutch the edge of her jacket. Baek Yul tried to move closer, but a wall of wariness and silence rose between them again. Yul's face, leaving her alone with yet another failure and frustration. The next morning, Baek Yul returned with a new dose of enthusiasm, determined to break the ice between them at any cost. But the attempt was again dashed against a closed door, and Baek Yul's patience was becoming increasingly fragile. Another day later, Yu Yi-jin suddenly spoke first, leaving Baek Yul at a loss for words. Baek Yul stood frozen in the middle of the hallway, trying to believe that she had finally stopped being completely ignored. Inspired by her success, she gave a long speech, hoping to get closer to the dangerous and mysterious Yu Yi-jin. Left alone in the evening, Baek Yul recalled with a heavy sigh every failed attempt to get closer. In the cozy living room, Han Li-hyun handed her a cup of herbal tea and sat down quietly next to her. Warm steam rose from the cup, and Baek Yul wearily clasped her hands around it, collecting her thoughts. Han Li-hyun listened carefully to Baek Yul, realizing how much Yu Yi-jin had touched her. Baek Yul was busily making plans to help Yu Yi-jin, unaware of how dangerous her concern had become. Sitting on a light sofa with a cup of tea, Baek Yul was already thinking of a new way to gain Yu Yi-jin's trust. Han Li-hyun cooled her ardor sharply, reminding her that obsessive kindness sometimes does more harm. These words made Baek Yul freeze with wide eyes, and her anxious thoughts started spinning even faster. The memories of Yu Yi-jin's training, her falls and constant attempts to cope with everything alone came to mind. Han Li-hyun calmly drank tea and asked directly why Baek Ye-yul was clinging to that girl so much. Under the gray shades of memories, Yu Yi-jin appeared, her condition becoming more and more difficult day by day. There was silence in the room for a few seconds as Han Li-hyun carefully chose his words. Baek Yul prepared to argue, but the serious tone of her interlocutor made her listen attentively further. Han Li-hyun suddenly leaned closer, depriving Baek Yul of her usual sense of security and control. His face was very close, and his scarlet gaze revealed a dangerous interest that was already difficult to hide. Baek Yul flushed with embarrassment when there was almost no distance left between them. Amidst the soft pink hues, Han Li-hyun moved even closer, completely throwing her off balance. Heart of Baek Yul's heart beat faster as the cold and dangerous man suddenly appeared too close. Han Li-hyun quickly changed the subject, hiding his dangerous thoughts behind a slight smile, and talking about the new gates. Baek Yul adjusted her hair in confusion, trying to figure out what exactly the cold S-class was hiding. Against the light background, Han Li-hyun looked harmless, but behind his soft smile hid a dangerous man. Yul's cheeks flushed red and her heart began to beat faster after their recent intimacy. In her thoughts, Han Li-hyun already resembled a jealous predator, ready to protect only his own. At the pool, Yu Yi-jin glanced over her shoulder, greeting the new day among the blue reflections of the water. Baek Ye-yul appeared with a wide smile and enough energy to fill the entire training base. Without wasting any time, she slipped inside, blocking the passage and causing Yu Yi-jin to stop. The door slammed loudly, and Yu Yi-jin looked with displeasure at the guest who had disturbed the order. Baek Yul nervously laughed it off, covering her persistence with her usual friendly chatter. Yu Yi-jin demanded dryly to clear the way, not intending to give in even under pressure. Baek Yul stood her ground stubbornly, determined to get an answer at any cost and not back down. A second later, her knees wobbled and her confidence crumbled faster than she expected. Baek Yul calmly extended her hand, while I was acting out another little scene. Their fingers touched under the golden light, and Baek Yul immediately perked up with joy. Yu Yi-jin suddenly tensed up, not expecting such contact and the overly warm reaction on the contrary. Baek Yul laughed sheepishly, trying to turn the awkward moment into a normal accident. Baek Yul shifted awkwardly by the pool while Yu Yi-jin greeted her with a cold and wary silence. Beaming with joy, Baek Yul quickly introduced herself, ready to make friends with her new acquaintance at any cost. Upon learning that she was in front of Han Li-hyun's personal guide, Yu Yi-jin was surprised by the rare level of compatibility. Baek Yul immediately turned the conversation to Han Li-hyun, hoping to break the ice through a mutual friend. Yu Yi-jin cut off the rumors shortly, emphasizing that there was no intimacy between her and the dangerous S-class. Undeterred by the refusal, Baek Yul was already making plans for friendship, infecting the space with her energy. Blue streams of water swirled around Yu Yi-jin until the conversation smoothly moved on to Jiha. Amidst the glittering waves, Yu Yi-jin admitted that Jiha was hiding her condition and enduring pain. Baek Yul froze in the middle of the corridor, not understanding why anyone would voluntarily suffer alone. Yu Yi-jin glanced at her sharply, struck by such genuine concern for someone else's well-being. The water burst into bright sparks, and Baek Yul persistently urged him not to endure the pain in silence. With a gentle smile, Baek Yul listed the options for help, sincerely trying to support Jiha. Yu Yi-jin calmly dispelled hopes, explaining that even the best drugs are powerless against the problem. Hearing the name of the guide So Jiha, Baek Yul instantly perked up and prepared to discuss it further. Yu Yi-jin wearily called Seo Jiha irresponsible, recalling his recent antics and disappearances. Yu Yi-jin grabbed Baek Yul's hand sharply, her eyes flashing with alarm at the unknown threat. Blue streams of energy shot up to the ceiling as Yu Yi-jin covered Baek Yul with her body. Baek Yul clenched her fists tensely, trying to figure out who was approaching without sounding an alarm. Ice shards swirled around Yu Yi-jin, her focused gaze searching for the source of danger. Baek Yul turned pale and prepared to act, feeling the pressure growing around her. Baek Yul remembered the old story about the S-classes whose dangerous strength even clashed with each other. Under the bright light, the girl stood frozen in confusion as anxiety rapidly grew around her. Blue energy flared in a powerful circle, and the unknown source of the threat was rapidly approaching. Lee Hyun appeared among the golden reflections, beaming with a smile and searching for Baek Yul faster than anyone else. Amid the crackling of scarlet lightning, Han Li-hyun and Yu Yi-jin met each other's eyes, ready to clash. Baek Yul found herself between two dangerous S-classes as the air around her trembled with tension. Han Li-hyun suddenly appeared at the pool and immediately became interested in why Baek Yul had quit training. Baek Yul nervously made excuses, trying to hide her embarrassment with a carefree smile and a light tone. Hearing her answer, Han Li-hyun tensed up, thinking that the girl was going to sneak out without him. Baek Yul quickly dispelled her suspicions, but new disturbing thoughts were already swirling in her head. With a smile, the dangerous S-class reminded him of the greeting while Yu Yi-jin stood silently nearby. Yu Yi-jin coldly confirmed the acquaintance, leaving Baek Yul completely perplexed by what was happening. Han Li-hyun added fuel to the fire with a satisfied grin, causing the tension between the girls to rise. Yu Yi-jin's face darkened, and irritation flared up brighter than the icy currents of her ability. Han Li-hyun laughed softly, enjoying the result of his seemingly harmless provocation. Yu Yi-jin struggled to contain her emotions as Baek Yul tried to understand the cause of the conflict. Baek Yul flared up with indignation and attacked Han Li-hyun for his strange jokes. The dangerous man remained calm, and his composure only irritated those around him even more. Baek Yul cheerfully dragged Han Li-hyun towards the exit, while Yu Yi-jin remained behind with heavy thoughts. The dangerous Han Li-hyun walked calmly beside her, while Baek Yul taught him basic human greetings. Yu Yi-jin looked at her palm thoughtfully, comparing Baek Yul's support with her own painful feelings. In warm golden colors, her memory painted the contrast between the prickly connection with So Jia and the softness of Baek Yul. Pitch Yul recalled with alarm the suffering of Yu Yi-jin, sincerely worrying about the girl more than before. Yu Yi-jin lowered her head, and the words of support she heard hurt her heart. Hearing her name, the girl turned around sharply, trying to hide the surge in emotions and confusion, walked confidently towards Yu Yi-jin, beaming with a bright smile and in a good mood. Golden highlights played in Soji's hair as she prepared to receive the long-awaited support. In a golden glow of support, Sojia held Yu Yi-jin's hands tightly, helping her cope with the pain. As soon as the flow of energy died down, Sojia suddenly tensed up, sensing an alarming change. Yu Yi-jin raised her head in confusion, not understanding why a calm training session had caused such a reaction. Sojia jumped up from her seat and grabbed the girl's hand in panic, afraid of losing her forever, before Yu Yi-jin's eyes, leaving behind a strange feeling. The girl turned pale and remembered the mysterious mark that appeared after the short touch. So, Jia glared at her, demanding an explanation and trying to find the source of the danger. Yu Yi-jin sheepishly admitted that she accidentally spilled Coach Quack's medication on herself during training. The somber purple background emphasized the gravity of the moment as Sojia assessed the consequences of her mistake. Having calmed down a bit, Sojia sat down next to her and warned Yu Yi-jin about the hidden danger of the drug. Under the golden sparks, their fingers intertwined again and a warm trust arose between the girls. Sojia's golden support gently enveloped Yu Yi-jin, but along with the relief, it left a strange trace. A bright stream of energy dispelled the pain, and Sojia carefully held the girl, checking the result. In a dark office, a mysterious man watched the success of the experiment with a satisfied smile. Sojia was pleased to see the progress, but the firm handshake made her even more wary. Yu Yi-jin flushed with excitement and reached out for more support, becoming almost dependent on the relief. Sojia stopped the girl abruptly, fearing that uncontrolled help would have serious consequences. The conversation quickly moved on to the second-level gates where danger was already approaching very close. With a confident smile, Sojia announced their trip to the gate, and Yu Yi-jin froze in surprise. Blue streams of water swirled around Yu Yi-jin, highlighting her upcoming debut as a dangerous S-class. In the semi-darkness of the office, the mysterious man revealed the plan. 3 doses of the drug could change the fate of an Esper. The small capsule lay on the palm of the hand, and a satisfied smile revealed confidence in the coming miracle. Sojia frowned when she heard about the level increase hidden behind the simple words of the scientist. The man spread his arms wide and promised the incredible, transforming an ordinary A-class into an S-class. Sojia's eyes lit up with a greedy gleam, and her thoughts were already picturing glory, power, and the admiration of the crowd. In the bright glow of the spotlights, the girl imagined herself as a star around which the whole world revolved. At the pool, Sojia confidently suggested that Yu Yi-jin take the test and try out a new chance. A warm smile quickly dispelled Yu Yi-jin's doubts, as Sojia herself promised support. Golden sparks surrounded the girl, and a happy smile full of hope blossomed on her face. Dogon carefully studied the glowing map with the mark of the future gate near the institute, trying to assess the threat and find at least some useful information before the situation got out of control. Kimura looked up from the blue hologram and confirmed that the long-awaited notification had finally appeared. At his desk, Dogon frowned, still worried about whether Baek would be able to cope. Yule on a dangerous mission. Among the flickering screens, Kimura spoke of the risk of betrayal, but Dogon was thinking only of Baek. Yule. Hearing her name, Dogon suddenly looked up, and the anxiety on his face became even more noticeable. The rainy season had begun outside the city, and this detail immediately caught Kimura's attention. Blue dossier Pacquiao Yule flashed across the screen, linking her past traumas with rainstorms and bloody tragedies. Turning to the shelves with documents, Kimura suggested a connection between the rain and the childhood disaster she had experienced. Dogon confidently rejected this version and plunged into memories of the events of 15 years ago. Under a clear sky with rare clouds, Dogon remembered the day that changed Baek's fate forever. Yule. Kimura let out a worried sigh after Dogon's words and still hoped that the new drug would help Baek. Yule. Light flickered over the table as Kimura assured Dogon of the successful outcome of the treatment. Dogon's sharp shout made Kimura tense up, and a heavy silence instantly fell over the office. Dogon demanded immediate action, discarding cautious guesses and vague assumptions. With a sweeping gesture, he gave orders, determined to eliminate all threats around Han Li-hyun. Drenched courtyard was immersed in greenery as Han Li-hyun and Baekyo were relaxing on the sun loungers. Han Li-hyun enjoyed the rare silence, remembering the noisy days next to the energetic girl. Baek Yul chatted cheerfully about life in the mountains, turning an ordinary vacation into light conversation. Han Li-hyun smiled as he described the advantages of the mountain trails, ideal for training the strongest hunters. Pek Yul immediately reminded him of the long journey, cheerfully ruining his beautiful plan. Hearing the objection, Han Li-hyun quickly abandoned the idea and laughed at his own persistence. Pek Yul smiled and declared her strength, proudly emphasizing her independence and stubborn nature. Han Li-hyun's sly grin gave way to an unexpected confession about how he was going to help. Pek Yul responded heatedly, confessing her love for cars and fear of heights. A vivid fantasy flashed before the girl's eyes, where Han Li-hyun carried her in his arms under the gaze of the crowd. From one such picture, Pek Yul blushed with embarrassment and firmly rejected the idea. Han Li-hyun thoughtfully swirled his glass of juice and remembered his old promise to build a dream house with his friend. Under the soft rays of the sun, Han Li-hyun told Pek Yul, talks about a friendship that began at the age of 9. A bright children's drawing came to life in my memory, where 2 boys dreamed of a quiet house in the forest and freedom. The unfinished frame of the house stood among the stones, and Pek Yul asked curiously about the past. Han Li-hyun calmly confirmed the story and admitted that his friend had indeed treasured that promise. Pek Yul leaned forward in surprise, wanting to know where the person from those old memories had disappeared to. A slight smile touched Han Li-hyun's face as he admitted that his friend never showed up again. Pek Yul stood frozen in confusion among the greenery of the garden, not understanding the reason for her disappearance for such a long time. Gray clouds covered the sky, leaves swirled in the wind, and Han Li-hyun's voice became heavier and quieter. In memory of Pek Yul emerged on a rainy evening, where Han Li-hyun looked lonely and unusually sad. Cold drops of rain shimmered outside the glass as Pek Yul tried to find answers to troubling questions. A sharp roar cut through the silence, and Pek Yul shuddered, pressing her palm to her chest under the alarming flashes of light, a cold sweat breaking out on her hand as her thoughts swirled around the peaceful days left behind. In the blue of the night, Han Li-hyun became alert when a familiar voice reached him through the rumble of the thunderstorm. Golden lightning flashed outside the window, and Han Li-hyun listened tensely to the rain and silence. Having received the support of Pek Yul, Han Li-hyun began to feel her presence much more acutely and strongly. Throwing off the blanket, Han Li-hyun stood up abruptly, certain that what he had heard was not a figment of his imagination. A blue screen flashed in front of him, and anxiety instantly gave way to determination to find Pek Yul. Han Li-hyun opened the curtains, and the cold rain outside the glass greeted him with an alarming noise. A lonely figure stood in the middle of the gray wall of rain, and Han Li-hyun immediately recognized Pek Yul. On the dark screen of the past, little Pek Yul said goodbye to her parents with a smile through the flickering connection. The car rushed forward, and Pek's voice Yul trembled with anxiety, trying to stop his family at any cost. Mom turned around with a warm smile, not understanding why her daughter was calling her name so desperately. Purple darkness covered the space, and the impending catastrophe had already begun its terrible countdown. Alarms blared in the streets, and bewildered people began to run under the red sky. Enormous blue gates tore through the air above the city, forcing crowds to flee from the disaster. Father looked in the mirror calmly while Pek Yul understood that there was almost no time left. Through her tears, the mother tried to calm her daughter. Trembled, clasping her hands, and saving her last strength. With a trembling hand, Madame pointed to the safe place where Pek Yul could find help and protection. With a gentle smile, the mother asked her daughter to run faster, hiding her own fear of the end. Pek Yul sobbed and promised to return, and her mother's words shone with warmth amidst the horror. The wrecked car was lost among the ruins, and the memory of her mother painfully squeezed Pek's heart. Yul. A monster with scarlet eyes appeared among the destroyed streets, carefully examining the empty city. A bright green whirlwind cut through the sky and fell upon the monster, changing the course of that tragedy. An emerald whirlwind tore through the sky above the ruins, and an unknown youth in a school uniform raised his hand to the storm. A bright stream of energy fell down and with one blow cut through the monster, filling the street with green light. Esper hovered among the debris, and his appearance gave hope to the survivors. The young savior fell heavily to his knees among the ruins, wincing in pain from the blow. Sweat was pouring down his face, and the wound on his chest was a reminder of the price he had to pay. A warm golden glow enveloped Pek's palms. Yul, as she carefully directed energy to the wounded man. The pain began to recede, and the guy looked in surprise at the girl in the middle of the destroyed city. The stranger studied Pek carefully, Yul trying to understand who she is and where she came from. Hearing about Pek's parents Yul, the young man jumped up and demanded to be shown the way. A trembling finger pointed to the wrecked car, near which the monster had already caught up with its prey. Red horror covered Pek Yul, when she saw her mother motionless among the blood. In the cold rain, Paek Yul remembered a forgotten nightmare that had haunted her for many years. Tears mixed with the raindrops as the girl silently asked her parents for forgiveness. Unable to bear the pain of memories, Paek Yul rushed forward through the rain and wind. Han Li-hyun managed to catch Paek Yul, picked her up, preventing her from falling onto the wet asphalt. Paek Yul lay under a warm blanket, and the first rays of dawn gently slid across her face. Han Li-hyun anxiously searched for answers about Paek Yul as the blue communication screen flashed in front of him. After learning about her fear of rain, Han Li-hyun became increasingly worried about the girl's condition. The dawn was turning red outside the window, and Han Li-hyun frowned more and more hearing the disturbing details. Having decided to take Paek Yul was in the hospital, Han Li-hyun confidently walked towards her bed. Leaning closer, Han Li-hyun was about to leave for the doctor, but suddenly heard a quiet whisper. Sleepy Paek Yul called his name and asked him not to leave, holding tightly to hope. Tears rolled down the girl's cheeks, and her trembling voice sounded painful and sincere. Han Li-hyun stood frozen in the middle of the room, not knowing how to help Paek yell and ease her pain. Paek Yul walked through the snowy forest under the icy sky, the cold getting stronger with every step. Among the white trees, the girl turned around abruptly, hearing a familiar voice breaking the winter silence. A mother in a light jacket appeared ahead, anxiously hurrying to meet her confused daughter. Paek's eyes, Yul's tears filled her eyes when she finally recognized the most familiar silhouette. Unable to contain her emotions, the girl rushed forward and hugged her mother tightly in the middle of the snowy road. Off to the side, father was calmly clearing snow with a shovel, while Paek Yul was coming to her senses after the nightmare she had experienced. Holding her daughter close, the mother gently calmed her, dispelling the remnants of the terrible dream. The mother's kind smile warmed me more than any fire, bringing back Paek Yul's long-awaited peace. The father raised his hand with the shovel and was about to continue working among the snow-covered trees. Paek Yul hurried after them, afraid of losing her parents again in the endless whiteness. Her mother gently touched her face and asked her to warm up first after the long cold. The girl clung tightly to her mother's jacket, not wanting to let her go even a step. In the warm embrace of Mama Paek, Yul felt like a little child again, under reliable protection. Closing her eyes, the girl remembered how much she missed her parents all these long years. The picture around shook, and Paek Yul suddenly woke up next to a shirtless Han Li-hyun. Rubbing his eyes and breathing heavily after sleep, Paek Yul tried to understand where the dream ended and reality began. Paek Yul woke up abruptly in her room and froze, finding Han Li-hyun sleeping right next to her in her bed. Clutching the blanket to her chest, the girl blushed and tried to understand how they had ended up under the same blanket. A rainy evening flashed in my memory, but Paek Yul still couldn't piece together the events of last night. Through the noise of the downpour, barefoot Han Li-hyun ran towards the house, desperately searching for Paek Yul in the dark. A warm smile lit up the girl's face as she remembered how Han Li-hyun had worried about her all night. Lying very close, Paek Yul looked at Han Li-hyun with curiosity and could barely contain her embarrassment. In the soft morning light, her attention was drawn to the blonde hair and calm face of the sleeping boy. Paek Yul admired Han Li-hyun, trying to understand why he was hiding his eyes under a black blindfold. Suddenly, Han Li-hyun moved and hovered over the girl, causing her heart to pound wildly. A moment later, he hugged Paek tightly. Yul in a dream, completely depriving her of the opportunity to escape. Paek Yul froze in Han Li-hyun's arms, feeling the heat of his body and growing embarrassment from such closeness. Li-hyun's hand slowly slid down her waist, and the girl's face flushed brighter than the morning dawn. Paek Yul desperately tried to wake up the guy, but sleepy Han Li-hyun only hugged her tighter. Finally, Han Li-hyun opened his eyes and stared at the girl in confusion, not understanding what was happening. Sitting on the bed and wrapped in a blanket, Paek Yul quickly realized why she woke up in his arms. Hearing Nuna's name, Han Li-hyun covered his face with his hand, and anxiety instantly appeared on his face. Li-hyun's eyes as he sensed a familiar presence somewhere nearby. Paek Yul called out to him in confusion, but the guy abruptly turned away and demanded not to look at him. A report appeared on the screen, and Paek Yul, with a slight smile, assured Dogon that nothing had happened between her and Han Li-hyun. Blue data windows flickered in the dim light as Dogon checked the strange readings on Han Li-hyun's devices. Paek Yul calmly confirmed Dogon's words, unaware of where this conversation would lead. Dogon's face became more serious when the connection with Han Li-hyun was cut off again without explanation. The girl stepped closer to the screen and offered to personally check the dangerous man's condition. Dogon sharply refused, promising to sort it out himself if the situation really became critical. From these words of Baek Yeol shuddered, and an anxious tension seemed to thicken around her. The sky outside was clear, but the girl's thoughts revolved around the night she spent with Han Li-hyun. Baek Yeol stood by the window, going over every detail of their awkward awakening in her mind. Han Li-hyun suddenly dropped to his knees, which instantly knocked the girl off balance. Baek Yeol frowned and demanded that they stop apologizing for something that was no one's fault. Han Li-hyun remained silent, and his tense posture revealed a genuine sense of guilt. The girl flushed with embarrassment and reminded him that it was strange to apologize for an ordinary sleep together. Baek Yeol confidently convinced Han Li-hyun that a simple mistake does not make him a bad person or a monster. Li-hyun's head, causing the girl to freeze in confusion. Falling to his knees, Han Li-hyun painfully recalled her fall and his own frightening reaction. Baek Yeol moved closer and reminded him that she had only suffered a slight bruise after falling out of bed. With a bright smile, the girl declared that she was considered one of the most resilient and strong guides. Han Li-hyun lowered his head and admitted that this was not the reason for his fear. Baek's serious face Yeol's resolve grew even stronger when she heard the boy call himself a monster. The girl hotly objected, reminding him that many respected and appreciated Han Li-hyun for his strength. After a long silence, Han Li-hyun revealed the secret behind his frightening nickname, Medusa. Snakes, skulls, and dark candles appeared before his mind's eye, emphasizing the mortal danger of his gift. Baek Yeol listened attentively, trying to understand why the boy was so afraid of his own days. Han Li-hyun said that anyone who made eye contact with him would instantly turn to stone. The silhouette of the frozen victim surfaced in his memory, and his clenched fists betrayed the pain of these memories. Han Li-hyun admitted that he still cannot fully control this deadly gift. Through the sunlight, Baek Yeol asked anxiously if Han Li-hyun was completely unable to control his power. Han Li-hyun ran his hand heavily over his headband and admitted that his gift was growing faster than he could contain it. Baek's face. Yeol turned pale when the boy reminded her that this power had almost gotten her killed. A warm golden glow enveloped the room, and Baek Yeol unwittingly helped Han Li-hyun remove the bandage, lifting the weight off his soul. The black cloth lay on the bed, and Han Li-hyun bitterly admitted that one mistake had almost cost Baek the Yule of life. Han Li-hyun hung his head, tormented by guilt, as beads of sweat rolled down his pale face. Baek Yeol hastened to reassure the boy, smiling brightly and not allowing him to drown in self-flagellation. Li-hyun's surprise, his deadly gift had no effect on the girl sitting next to him. In a bright room, he explained that his gaze kills everyone without exception: people, animals, and monsters. Baek Yeol excitedly raised her thumbs up, declaring herself the first person to break this rule. Among the scarlet flowers, Han Li-hyun showed his ruby eyes for the first time, and Baek Yeol admired them with admiration. The guy froze in confusion, not believing what he heard, while hope trembled in his voice. With a wide smile, Baek Yeol confirmed that she had indeed seen his eyes and was unharmed. The realization struck Han Li-hyun like lightning. In front of him sat the only girl in the world who had survived his gaze. A silence filled with worry hung between them as Han Li-hyun tried to control his emotions. Pressing his palm to his face, the guy admitted that his heart was beating so hard it felt like it was bursting out. Sitting on his knees in the middle of the room, Han Li-hyun felt not fear, but true happiness for the first time. Baek Yeol smiled softly, deciding that his body was simply going through too much of a shock. The girl waved her hand cheerfully and joked about his superpowers, not even suspecting that she was only making things worse. Han Li-hyun suddenly flushed with excitement and almost screamed, realizing how dangerous this exclusion had become. In the kitchen, bathed in the morning light, Han Li-hyun, wearing a pink apron, nervously admitted that he had been worried about Baek all night. Baek Yeol awkwardly picked at her breakfast with her fork, trying to remember the events after the terrible rain and the strange dream. A memory of the downpour flashed before her eyes, where Han Li-hyun ran through the storm towards the unconscious girl. A thoughtful silence fell over the table as they searched together for an explanation for the unusual memories. Han Li-hyun cautiously suggested the influence of the medication, observing Baek's confused reaction. Yeol. Next to the bottle of pills, the girl wondered if her memory was returning after the disaster she had experienced. Putting down his fork, Baek Yeol cheerfully stated that she felt great and was ready to forget about the hospital. The warm light of the bedroom reminded Han Li-hyun of how he had sat by her bed all night, monitoring her condition. Slyly propping his cheek with his hand, Baek Yeol began to suspect that the guy cared about her much more than usual. Han Li-hyun instantly tensed up as the conversation suddenly turned to her clothes and the events of that night. In comic panic, the guy waved his hands, justifying himself by saying that he was only acting for her safety. Han Li-hyun, blushing to the ears, blurted out a long explanation about wet clothes, telekinesis, and a life-saving blanket. At breakfast, Baek Yul awkwardly admitted that she completely trusted Han Li-hyun, and the guy froze with a stone face in surprise. Turning to the window, Han Li-hyun thought gloomily that without Baek Yul, his life would have long ago turned into a disaster. In the golden glow of the flowers, the girl sincerely thanked him for saving her, giving him a warm and carefree smile. Han Li-hyun froze in embarrassment when Baek Yul hugged his shoulder in a friendly manner, not noticing his nervousness. Plucking up her courage, the girl asked to show her eyes, because now there were no longer any old fears between them. Beaming with curiosity, Baek Yul came so close that Han Li-hyun almost lost his composure. Lowering his head, the guy quietly inquired about the reason for such persistence, trying to hide his embarrassment. Anxiety appeared on his face, and confusion in the face of the girl's unexpected attention sounded in his voice. Baek Yul confidently stated that she had trusted him for a long time and wanted to see the world the way he saw it. She added with a smile that friends are obliged to support each other, even in the strangest situations. At the table, the girl emotionally urged Han Li-hyun to stop hiding and let someone be near him. Li-hyun's lips softening his cold image. Baek Yul froze in surprise when she saw that rare smile, which instantly made him even more attractive. Baek Yul called out to Han Li-hyun, but out of embarrassment, she immediately buried her face in the table, hiding her burning cheeks. Han Li-hyun suddenly leaned forward and called out to the girl in alarm, frightened by her sudden reaction. Without raising his head, Baek Yul quietly apologized, admitting that she had gotten too carried away with her thoughts.